This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, y'all. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We got a game day edition. Jets and the Shark Tank tonight to take on the exciting young San Jose Sharks, led by superstar phenom Macklin Celebrini, right up there with Connor McDavid at the top of the NHL scoring leaders. Going to be a fun one. The team on the ice as we speak right now at the Shark Tank, getting in a little bit of an AM skate. We'll see if there's any line rushes, and we'll be tweaking the clean line lines when we get after it. It was a little different. Of course, Colin Miller was in last game. We'll see whether he stays. Murat is going to join us from San Jose in about an hour or so to get the latest to tee up tonight's game, as well as speak about his latest on the importance of this road trip in these next couple of weeks for the Winnipeg Jets in the Athletic. We will also talk some puck and look ahead to the weekend with both the Sharks and this Ducks game on Sunday night that I'm really looking forward to. Ducks, how about that last night? Dropping 7 on the Dallas Stars in Dallas for another win. Leo Carlson up there with 20 points on the season. This Ducks team is making people take notice, and the Jets are going to have their hands full heading into the Duck Pond on Sunday night for that 9 p.m. start. But, of course, tonight we started off in San Jose. We'll hit that and the upcoming weekend and some more NHL talk with Brandon Rewucki. And before Brandon jumps in, Jeff Hamilton, the Hammer. We cranked out CFL 110 earlier this week. Since then, we've heard from Brady Oliveira. I know Hammer's going to have plenty of takes on where the Blue Bombers go from here, as well as the big news of Ryan Dinwiddie ditching the Argos for the division rival Ottawa Redblacks. Hammer coming up the bottom of the hour as well. And then after Murat, we'll get into a little NFL talk with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Hopefully we won't talk at all about the outrageously bad Thursday nighter last night. That was taking us back to the good old days, the early days of Thursday night football. Like, give me a color rush 2-10 Jags versus 3-9 Houston Texans game. That's what it felt like last night with the Broncos beating the Raiders. Broncos somehow are 8-2 now, despite looking the way they did last night. They win by 3. We'll talk about some of the better games on the schedule and everything else happening around the league with Hacksaw a little bit later on in the program. Listen, we should get going. Want to get Remis in here. Welcome to everybody in chat. Make sure to stick around for our marble race at the end of the program. And around 2:45, we'll open up the registration for it. And if you want more on NFL and our NFL picks, myself, Pat, and Jake fired it up on WST Winners this morning at 10 a.m., making all our favorite picks against the spread, a couple of our favorite props, our touchdown scores, and we cranked all that out. We'll get to the Coolbet lines a little later on. But if you want a little bit more of our picks and fun for the week in the National Football League, that's already up on the YouTube channel and the podcast for the latest edition of WST Winners. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, a huge thanks to the sponsors that make WST happen. Of course, our partners at Coolbet Canada, our friends at Princess Auto, the Winnipeg Jets. Had a few people ask if there are any tickets left for the WST night, November 21st, when the Carolina Hurricanes and Nikolai Ehlers come in. Yes, there are, but get them now. You don't want to be left out, and we'd love to have you join us for what should be a real fun Friday night in a few weeks. Of course, the HSC Millionaire Lottery, Rolly's Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, our friends at Uptown Alley, Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We'll get to a why not question of the day for the gang at Not Auto Corp over at Waverly and McGillivray. and, of course, fan feedback for fansfirst.ca. Let's get her going. Michael Remis. Remo, tell me that you were busy, that you were not watching the Raiders-Broncos game last night. That was something. That was something. Good thing there was a lot of NHL action last night on.
It was certainly a game. I had it on my tablet, and I was watching... What was I watching? The Wild game against Carolina. Ehlers on the board again. New Jersey, Montreal. Montreal giving up the tying goal in like the dying seconds of the game, then losing in overtime. I saw the end of that. So I was flipping the NHL games. I did have that football game on a tablet. And yeah, I fell asleep because it was just that awful. I'm in a survivor pool. Some people had Denver, so I was cheering for the Raiders, but not a great game. But there were some good NHL games last night. And,
Hey, we put together that little parlay we did with Pittsburgh. Sidney Crosby goal, Kimball assist, and Penguins to win at plus 450. That cash, which was nice. And we almost ran the table. We had the Canes, we had the Devils, and the Kings were up 2-1. But, good on Florida finding a way to win. They stormed back. We're definitely the better team. I watched most of the second and third period of that game. They were full marks, but not a great start. And the thing is, the Thursday nighters this year, Remis, for the most part, have been amazing. I mean, such a far cry from the old color rush days of the worst teams in the NFL going at it on Thursdays. But last night was a bit of a throwback, if you will. And hey, listen, if you're a Bronco fan, you're feeling good. You're fortunate that you're 8-2, but that ain't going to cut it next week when the Chiefs come off the bye and head into Mile High, although they'll have a little bit more time to prepare for that one with sort of the mini bye playing on Thursday night. Listen, before we dive in to the Jets and the upcoming weekend, Remis, you mentioned yesterday that at some point last night we were going to be getting the reveal of the Canadian Olympic jerseys. And I thought your take was bang on yesterday. It's going to be really tough to match just how sweet the Canada jerseys for the Four Nations were. So I was prepared not to be, not to maybe be a little bit underwhelmed, just considering how awesome I thought the jerseys were last year, and we saw a little bit of a glimpse. I was not prepared for just how god-awful the kits that we're going to be wearing in Italy are. You went through your sort of rankings of a number of the jerseys that Canada's worn in the past, some good, some not so good. This latest incarnation is right towards the bottom. I can handle the whites, I guess. I mean, they're not terrible. The red jersey with the black maple leaf and the black on black Canada jersey might be the biggest abomination that Hockey Canada has ever put forward. I get it. Every time these things are, I make fun of people, everyone that's getting mad online about stupid things on Twitter or whatever all the time. Count me in the group that is somewhat mad online or at least miffed. I'm just happy that I got a Canada jersey for Four Nations with Josh Morrissey on it, because that's what I'm going to be wearing at the Olympics, not what they just threw out on the screen last night.
Wow, Huss. I said I wasn't optimistic about what they were going to look like. They seem to be very similar of the 2022 Olympic jerseys, so I was ready for disappointment. And I thought you were going to come on here and say, oh, everyone's getting so mad online, but everyone in real life thinks that they're fine. But here you are, Huss, saying how much, what would you call them, abomination?
They're an abomination.
Here's the
black one. I cannot believe, Canada is red and white. And we're going to go into the Olympic Games wearing a black on black jersey in a game? I think the red one's ugly too. If you maybe had a white maple leaf on the red jersey, sure. But since when is black our main color? It's not. It's red and white. I mean, as I say, I can live, if you were going to get one, get the white one. That does at least look like a Canada jersey. The other two, the black maple leaf with all the stuff that they have on it, I'm sure they're trying to make it really, cool and, a lot of different layers to it. At the end of the day, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Stick a freaking maple leaf on a red jersey and you're Team Canada. Like, they're just overcomplicating this. And as I say, the black one will go down as one of the worst uniforms. Never mind for hockey, for any Canadian Olympic team in any sport since we started getting different uniforms for all of our Canadian Olympians. I could not be more disappointed.
Wow, I'm almost surprised how hard you're going on this. I mean, I agree. I don't understand why you're having a black maple leaf on a red jersey, and the black on the black I don't like either. They've had black jerseys, which I've liked. The 2002 black alternate was pretty good, but that had a red maple leaf, and I don't like all the stuff in the leaf. And again, they had the 2010 ones were perfect. I don't know why you're going off the 2022 ones, but here we are. This is what they are. I'm sure I'll learn to like them when you see, Josh Morrissey and hopefully Mark Scheifele in them in Italy in February. But as of right now, yeah, I don't think that they needed to do this black on black. And people have made like mock-ups of what they could look like in a different way. And shout out to _jersey nerds on X who put these out. These are pretty sweet, actually. I mean, these are better. White.
Oh, yeah.
Red. Like, how much better are these? Podcast listeners, you'll have to watch us on YouTube. But I think these are, like, this black one looks pretty sweet, actually. So I don't like what they did. I don't like the number fonts. The striping doesn't go all the way around, which seems dumb. I didn't read the explanation of, like, whenever you come out with a jersey, you have to come up. Oh,
God, these marketing people are they're going into ChatGPT. Can you take these two sentences and turn it into 5 paragraphs with a whole bunch of BS in for the deeper meaning of all this? It's a freaking jersey. It's the Olympic Games. Canada's red and white. How do we complicate these things? And, hey, here's a first on WST, Reem. Here's a first. I have to sit here and applaud and wish for the good old days of a Fanatics product from the Four Nations instead of what Bauer and Nike and Hockey Canada put up. So anyways, I was a little, now that I'm talking about it more and looking at them again, I just cannot get over it. Well, we've got a poll up right now. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Are you in or out on Canada's Olympic hockey jerseys as released yesterday? Let us know in the chat with your take and vote in the poll as well.
Here's I guess the hot HKY jersey put this out. Like, if this is what they're doing with black leaf and white letters, I don't know if that's accurate or not, but this number font's terrible. If you're doing white, it doesn't make any sense. So we'll see what they look like, the red ones. I don't understand why it's a black maple leaf, but we'll move on. It's just
this is hilarious. This reminds me, speaking of terrible jerseys, we all saw those obscene kits that the Pittsburgh Steelers wore 2 weeks ago on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Where they had black numbers on the front and white on the back or reversed. Like, I don't even care about the font. Whatever. It's not that good, but to me, that's not the deal breaker, the numbers. It's just screwing with something that should be so simple and so clean, complicating it, adding in all this black for Canada, which is red and white. It just came out. Let's listen, let's get right into fan feedback for our friends at fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No added fees. When you go to Fans First and you're buying tickets for a Bomber game or a Jet game, sure, there'll be great Cup tickets available. What you see is what you pay, unlike most of the other ticket resale sites. There are quite a few people that are rolling in. What's up? Dr. Terry's here. Everyone's dropping in. Everyone's dropping in. Happy Fridays. Johnny Bender. The white jerseys are nice, but the black leaf, come on. Leonard, the whites are okay, and actually the red leaf is really nice. Russ Lowen says, wow, I like all but the black. Running Man, black is brutal. Leaf should be red. Key, and I'm with you on this. Red on black always looks awful. Husker, and wish Canada would get back to red pants and red and white jerseys, no black. I'm surprised about. Oh, Phyllis is surprised about the upset feelings about them. I mean, I'm not. Well, as I say, I just think that we've got. As I said, we had a perfect example of a beautiful jersey, and the jerseys for the entire Four Nations were, to me, like really raising the bar. And this has been just a complete limbo. Anyways, keep your thoughts coming in the chat. Vote in the poll. Right now, it's 62 for no, 38 for yes. Keep it coming. Fans first. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. By fans. For fans. No fees. All right, we've got the rant out of the way, Remo. Now we'll see what we've got cooking up tonight. This is going to be a fun one. The upstart Sharks, led by Macklin Celebrini, at home to the Winnipeg Jets. Sharks playing well lately. Have had some big wins, including just barnstorming Seattle 6-1 in their last time out. I know at the start of the year, you're kind of going through the schedule and you're looking at these games and that's when the team should win. To me, the Jets are going to need to be on their game if they're going to come out with 2 points tonight against a team that sort of, I think, feels like they're playing with house money. They had that terrible start. Now they're getting wins. They're getting a bit more confidence. They're getting some momentum. And this kid that we're going to be seeing in the middle of their top line, Macklin Celebrini, speaking of the Olympics, is probably going to be wearing one of those ugly-ass jerseys we just talked about.
Yeah, he's tied for first in the league in points right now with names like Jack Eichel and Connor McDavid. San Jose, though, they're 5-6-3, -6 goal differential this year. They're not going to be a playoff team, so for the Winnipeg Jets, this is a game they need to win. I don't think it'll be tough defensively as it was against LA. Maybe more, who had Vlad was saying, more run and gun, more room in the middle of the ice. But it's going to be important for them to stay within their structures. You don't let Macklin Celebrini run wild all over them and try to stay out of the box as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing San Jose. But for the Winnipeg Jets, they get a lot of wins against non-playoff teams, and this should be You'd think that this would be a 2 points for them, bouncing back after the loss against LA.
Well, listen, it ain't getting any easier.
No.
I mean, we just talked about what the Ducks have been up to as of late. I mean, beating a lot of really good teams and putting up a ton of goals in the process. And I'm kind of thinking we're going to get Helly back to back in both of these games. I was thinking that maybe Comrie goes against the Canucks on Tuesday. But again, you'll start the weekend off nice with a win, and then see if you can continue it against the Ducks right now, who are at the top of the Pacific Division. Big milestone tonight, Remo, for Vlad Nemestikov.
Yeah, 800 games for Vlad Nemestikov, and man, for a guy who's played on as many teams as him. Hasn't really been like a top guy, although he's been second-line guy, but he's played for Tampa, Rangers, Ottawa, Colorado, Detroit, Dallas, Tampa again. And now the Jets, he's into his fourth season with Winnipeg after being acquired at the 2023 trade deadline. It's a pretty nice career. Has 800 games, 343 points, added another 70 playoff games. That's pretty impressive for the former first-round pick in 2011. From Tampa Bay selecting him. That's 27th overall. Only 32, Vlad. So nicely done. 800 games. Congrats. He plays a big role on this team and has the last couple of years.
No, he certainly has. Here's what Arnie had to say about the milestone for Vladdy and 800 tonight.
The games played one to me has always been something throughout the team. Individually, both and as a group, that's a huge accomplishment. It's been able to, play in a very hard league, professional league, and be able to do it consistently over that time period. It just shows that there's an awful lot of work and hard work put into it, and real happy for Vladdy. Obviously great to see. He's one of those guys that the coach can really count on.
There's Arnie. You got to appreciate what Vlad Nemestikov's done over the course of his career, but especially here in Winnipeg since he was acquired. Here's a little bit more on Arnie, just on Vlad making adjustments to his game, which has helped him into hitting this milestone tonight.
And that's what happens the most. The longevity happens because you adjust to the league, you adjust to what's needed. Maybe the coach may have you in a penalty killing role, and maybe you're a power play guy. Maybe, how things change themselves. You play in the top 6, you may play in the bottom 6. Depends how your team is, the makeup of your group. And the guys that play a long time are the ones that are able to adapt and are able to do that. Obviously, the superstars, they kind of, they'd go about their business and do what they do every night. But it's those other guys like Vladdy, that recognize, what do I need to do to stay in the lineup? What do I need to do to get my 15, 16, 17 minutes a night and can contribute any way I can?
What a run it's been for Nemetsnikov. 5 seasons with the Lightning, or mostly 4. I mean, had 4 games as in 2013-14 breaking into the league. Then parts of 3 seasons with the Rangers. In 1920, he was with the Rangers for 2 games, 54 with the Senators, then finished it up with the Avalanche. 2 seasons in Detroit, cup of coffee in Dallas, then in Tampa, and then to Winnipeg. Although, ironically, Remis, the Jets actually traded for Vlad Nemetsnikov from the team they're playing tonight, the San Jose Sharks, who had the rights after trading for him from Tampa Bay Lightning, I believe for former Jet Mikey Eyssimont, if you recall. That being said, I don't think that there'll be a tribute video to Vlad tonight at the Shark Tank.
No tribute video, but apparently there's going to be a tribute to Joe Thornton in warm-up by San Jose. They're wearing, it's Joe Thornton weekend, I guess because he's going into the Hall of Fame on Monday, and they're going to be rocking beards in a warm-up in honor of Jumbo Joe.
Well, they'll be fake because I know that Macklin Celebrini can't grow a beard. Probably Will Smith neither, and a few other young players on that team. Here's one from Arnie, just what they need to do to get a win tonight against this exciting young Shark squad.
When it comes to their D-zone, it's a lot like LA, but they're a heck of a lot faster, and no disrespect to LA. There's some young kids over there that move really well, and they transition really well, just kind of like the Utahs we saw, a little bit of Seattle. There's some transition to their game. There's a lot of transition in the game. Watched that game last night. They can move in a hurry, so puck management's going to be huge, like any team. But at the end of the day, there are some things that we just saw last game that we can maybe use to our advantage there against this young group.
All right, so there's Scott R. Neal. Let's hear from the man of the moment tonight, Vlad Nemetsnikov, playing 800. Here's what he had to say about hitting the milestone tonight.
Crept on me that it's going to be 800 tomorrow, so you just got to go out there and enjoy it like any other games.
And how have you maybe seen, I know 800 games, it's a long time, but I'm curious how you've seen your game evolve, because now you think about your role on this team and the amount of different positions you could play for the team and everything. I just wonder how much that was part of your career going along.
Yeah, I think I came in as a centerman, didn't really know the defensive side of the game well. Over the years, kind of got put in those positions to defend first, and I think that helped me along the way, and now I can play any role, any position.
Mentioned coming in as a center, obviously on the wing now at this point. Just curious about how that little shift over has gone, and what do you think your line with JT and with Iafallo has been able to put together?
Yeah, it takes a couple games to kind of learn all the routes that wingers do instead of centers, but the way our system's built, like we interchange so much, it's kind of the same thing. So just go out there and think. And I think with JT and Al, they're such smart players. We kind of read off each other and as you said, like we're interchangeable in all the positions. So I think we've gotten better as we move on.
So there's Vlad tonight. Hammer's going to join us in a couple minutes, but did want to get to a little bit of Captain Adam Lowry, who of course finished up that long road back from his off-season surgery and played for the first time on Tuesday night. Full practice yesterday with the club. Game number 2 tonight. Here's the captain on how he's feeling and getting back on the ice with his team on Tuesday.
I didn't love my game. I was happy that I got through the game and the hip felt good. Obviously, I talked about the reads and things like that. The first shift, I try and jump and get a hit on Kempe and leave Kopitar all alone in front of our net and, assist on Doughty's goal to end the game. So, it was one of those ones where going into the game, obviously I didn't expect to feel my best or, be as sharp as I'd like to be. But, I felt like as the game progressed, I started to handle the puck a little more. My reads started to get better, and, felt like I was starting to get my legs under me. So a good practice today, reviewing some clips and, some things I didn't like in my game that, I think are easy fixes, reads that usually come second nature that, were a little rusty. So, it's definitely a building block. Obviously, a disappointing result. You always want to come back in and have a positive impact and help the team win the game. And that obviously wasn't the case. But I thought for the most part it was a pretty tightly contested game. It was two really good defensive teams that didn't really give up a whole lot 5-on-5, and special teams. Kind of ended up being the difference. Getting that late goal to put them up 2-0. We couldn't get the kill. So, all in all, it was a good first one to get out of the way, and I'm looking forward to being a lot better tomorrow night.
The captain, and listen, tomorrow night is now tonight, and they got the San Jose Sharks. I'm sure that Adam Lowry and many of the Jets have been paying attention to what they've been up to. Here's just a little bit of Lowry on playing the San Jose Sharks tonight.
Well, I think, the reads still have to be there, and kind of the principles that, our team has and the structure we have, regardless of what style of offense or, what style the other team plays, we kind of have those put in place so that, we can kind of dictate, how we defend, where the numbers are, where the pressure comes from and things like that. I think, it's certainly important that you're above their speed. They've got a real young team, and sometimes with those teams that play kind of a little looser, they're so fast, they're very dangerous that you can easily get caught free low, and they're gone on the rush and they can really hurt you. So I think it's definitely a vastly improved San Jose team over the teams that we faced in the past. So, we have to be ready for their speed. They're dangerous offensively, and they acquired some veteran guys on the back end to help solidify those spots. So, it's one of those ones. Have a good morning skate and get ready, because, it'll be another good test for us.
All right, coming up a little later on, Brandon will join us. We'll look ahead to the weekend for both the Sharks and Ducks games, and Murat will join us from San Jose, and we'll see if we've got any clarity as to how the clean line lines are going to look like tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. Hammer's good to go. Before we bring him in, hey, folks, looking for something fun to do on the weekend? Listen, when you're thinking fun for both the family, groups of people of all ages, Uptown Alley is the spot. If you haven't checked out their amazing new facility at 1301 St. Matthews, what are you waiting for? An absolutely amazing facility with 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, laser tag, an amazing arcade, games with great prizes, not to mention incredible food and all sorts of beverages, whatever you'd like to accompany with you on the lanes or while you're having fun. They've got a great daily deal right now. After 9 p.m., it's the Bowl and Play special, where you get 90 minutes of bowling and a $10 arcade card for $20.49 for 5-pin, $22.49 for 10-pin. And of course, it's an unbelievable spot for birthday parties for both kids, teens, or adults. An amazing group and corporate events with 3 easy steps to an amazing event. Pick your activities, your meal, your add-ons. And after that, the events team will take care of everything, and you'll have an amazing night. Tonight and anytime, Uptown Alley waiting for you. Get together with the gang and have a blast at Uptown Alley. UptownAlley.ca for more information on group events. And of course, open 7 days a week. Our friends at Rolly's Transfer are ready to help you and your family on your next move. It's a stressful time. If you need a mover, why don't you do what Manitobans have been doing for over 60 years? That's leaning on the most trusted name in the game, Rolly's Transfer. Head on over to their website at rollys.com, hit on request an estimate, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved, and the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they are famous for, now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, lean on our friends at Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today at rollys.com. I see Dr. Terry's in the chat today. our friends at St. Vital Dental Center, ready for a little marbles fun and a big weekend coming up. Listen, if you need your smile worked out, or if it's been a minute since you've seen a dentist, why don't you head on over to St. Vital Dental Center? They've been serving generations of Manitobans and have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's Road with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. A full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. Dr. Terry and his staff can do it all with a smile on their face to help the smile on yours. StVitalDental.ca for more information. Make an appointment and make it your long-term home for you and your family with a great group of people taking care of your smile. And hey, the weekend is here, gang. I know many of you are going to be popping by your local Manitoba liquor marts ahead of Grey Cup week next week. Make sure to check out the Canadian Club display for two things. Number one, limited quantities remain of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Special Edition Bomber Label bottle of Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Canada's iconic Canadian whiskey. And in addition, with the holidays coming up right now, for a limited time, we've got the cranberry ginger ale with Canadian Club. We know how popular the CC and ginger's been over the last couple of years. Well, just in time for the holidays, it's CC cranberry and ginger ale in 4-packs and in 473 milliliter cans. You can get those at Manitoba Liquor Marts, or keep your eyes out for it at your local vendor. Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Bombers, the Grey Cup festivities, and the holidays. Let's bring the hammer in. Lots to get to as we count down to tomorrow's big CFL West and East finals to see who's playing in the Grey Cup. Hammer, what is going on? How are you on the road today?
Not much, my friend. Yeah, it's the rare car cast for me, Huss. You know how I like to get technical. You know how I like to bring that sound, that picture, that energy to each interview. And I even tried doing that with here. I actually have I have these, uncharacteristic wireless earbuds. They're not even on, Huss. They're just there for show right now, so I could work this out. I tried to bring my other phone in with my other, my wireless headphones, but here we are. I had to do a last minute change, but certainly ready to chop things up. As you said, really exciting weekend here. Really exciting. You can already start to feel the buzz for Grey Cup, even though we're not there yet. But here we are in Winnipeg, obviously, the headquarters of the 112th championship game. Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Bombers won't be participating, and lots to talk about coming out of their end of season. We got into some of it on the CFL 110. We'll get to Brady Oliveira in a minute, but let's talk about the biggest news in the Canadian Football League that I think surprised a lot of people. Ryan Dinwiddie out in Toronto on his own accord. He goes and meets with Ottawa, takes over the GM and head coach position, and the Argos sort of left holding the bag, not even with an opportunity to try to have a conversation to keep their guy in TO. What's been the reaction around the league and your thoughts on the move of Dinwiddie to Ottawa? I was certainly curious what that conversation was with Dinwiddie in Toronto, right? When they ultimately granted him, but I don't think they didn't really have a choice. They can't. It wasn't a permission thing or not, but you do have the courtesy, obviously, if you're Ottawa, to call them and say you're interested in doing this. And as long as it's a promotion, as we know it was a promotion, it's all above board. But it was interesting to hear Toronto talk afterwards about how that they were hoping that they would have an opportunity to match the deal. Of course, that wasn't it. I wonder what that's all about. And obviously Ryan Dinwiddie wanting to leave, certainly getting the opportunity with the two titles, the GM role and the head coach role, and Huss. He's also the offensive coordinator. So that's the triple threat that he is. But this really almost feels like GM by name. But when what I'm hearing, what I'm talking to people about is that Ryan Dinwiddie is still going to have full control of the roster over Sean Burke, who goes from GM promoted to VP of football operations. So what we're led to believe that Sean Burke, who was an under 500 GM, mind you, before he got this promotion, he's now not going to be making the roster decisions. And then we're led to believe that he wasn't really making them necessarily before, that that Bob Dice had a lot of say in, what the roster was going to be, and, particularly pointed to special teams and the guys there. Well, I get why the special teams guys would be there under Bobby Dice, because he's a special teams guy, right? Of course you would be leaning on his expertise, but, I don't know if I'm buying this whole, Ryan Dinwiddie is going to have full control of the roster, but Sean Burke is just going to be negotiating the contracts. It seems really weird to me. This smells like, to me, I don't want to say promotion by name only. I'm sure Ryan Dinwiddie is going to have a lot of say in what the roster says, but I feel like it's a co-GM situation between him and Sean Burke. But overall, Huss, I mean, this is a massive acquisition for Ottawa, who I would argue fix their problems overnight, right? Coaching was the issue here, quarterbacking to a certain degree, the offense, well, that all gets fixed with a guy like Ryan Dinwiddie now at the helm. We all know how great he is with X's and O's. We all know what he can do with the likes of Nick Arbuckle. What can he do with Drew Brown? So obviously rock the CFL. The great part about it, I wrote this in my CFL rundown column yesterday, was that it just came in under the wire, because starting yesterday actually and through Grey Cup week until next Monday after the championship game, all teams are forbidden to announce any big news, signings, firings, hiring, stuff like that. They don't want to take away attention from obviously the two teams that'll be doing battle in the Grey Cup. So good for the Red Blacks. Just finding the just amount of time to get that in.
The why of all this is interesting, because listen, Dinwiddie's had a lot of success in Toronto. I mean, my read on this is this just enforces, I think, what we already know, that the Toronto Argonauts are a second-tier team in this league, despite being in the biggest market. Ryan Dinwiddie goes to an organization, that's got some good some support from ownership, from their fan base a lot more, and for him to leave a place where he's had so much success, obviously for a bigger job, a bigger role, and I'm sure the money's going to be good. It just speaks to where the Argos are right now. And I mean, you want to talk about a terrible situation to be in, trying to hire a head coach for an upcoming season where they're basically going to be on the road about 75% of the year. And I wouldn't be surprised if that decision and the way they went about it played a big part in Ryan Dinwiddie looking, maybe I should be looking somewhere to take my talents.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is too, Huss, it's like kind of Ryan Dinwiddie feels like he's been there for longer than 4 seasons, right? He came in 2020. There was no season that year. So I guess technically if we didn't have a global pandemic, he would have 5 seasons under his belt. But, so he hasn't been there a long time, but he has two Grey Cups. And, but it was this year in particular, right, that it seemed to get to him more than other years. Obviously the record wasn't there. The losses were racking up, but so were the post-game outbursts, right, from Ryan Dinwiddie. I mean, we were talking about on CFL 110 seemingly every week that he was coming up with a new soundbite, whether it was calling out, one of his phases of his team, whether it was calling out collectively, coaching staffs. It seemed there for a stretch that nobody was safe. So you could certainly see the frustration building up with Ryan Dinwiddie. The other thing too is I wonder, the reason why I consider Ryan Dinwiddie one of, if not the best coaches in the CFL, is because of what he had to do every year, right? Like he almost had a different quarterback every season. He had he had to work with a philosophy, a team philosophy that, under John Murphy, who's a great talent evaluator, right? Who, but is also kind of cutthroat, right? Like he has this philosophy that he's not going to pay an American running back this amount of money, a la AJ Ouellette, and why he went to Saskatchewan, right? Toronto had no interest in retaining him for that dollar amount because it's just not what they do, right? So my point in saying that is there's turnover on every team in the CFL, but it feels like in Toronto, it was like ripping it to the studs every year, and then Ryan Dinwiddie had to, work with what he had with guys he maybe didn't know as much about, learn quickly with, and succeed, right? I mean, a lot of people will point to the East Division and it being significantly easier than the West. That's a fair point. I completely understand. I don't look at, necessarily Ryan Dinwiddie's ability to finish first in the East, most of those years as some kind of massive triumph, or even a couple of those years, right? It's his ability to study an opponent and beat them. We saw that twice in the Grey Cup against Winnipeg. We've seen that, through that great run of they're 16-2 with Chad Kelly a couple of years back. So he's a guy who I can think can make a lot with a little. So with a completely different philosophy in Ottawa, where you retain guys, you build relationships, I wonder what kind of damage Ryan Dinwiddie could do. And I'm sure it probably was appealing to him. Not just what's going on in Toronto now, a couple years ago with all the saga there with Chad Kelly and whatnot, and that scandal, and then obviously as you alluded to, Huss, the schedule for next season. Maybe he just saw, as funny as this may sound, a little more stability in the 4-14 Red Blacks, right? So maybe and certainly. We don't know the dollars and cents at this point. I don't know if it's been reported yet or not, but you have to think that, Ottawa knew they needed to bring this guy in. He's got 3 titles. He's probably making more money than he was making in Toronto. Opportunity, as you suggested. So and it's a better city to live in for, I think, what Ryan Dinwiddie wants. I didn't hear a lot of this, but I read some of this that he, didn't love the idea of living in Toronto. Obviously, your paycheck doesn't go as far in a place like Toronto as it even would in Ottawa. Of course, other cities, Regina, Winnipeg, even further. So maybe there's an excitement there, new challenge, new team, new surroundings. It was only there for 5 years, but maybe he was wearing his welcome. Maybe he wanted more and they weren't willing to give it. There's lots of speculation around it, but clearly Ryan Dinwiddie had no interest in taking what he had heard from the Ottawa Red Blacks, much like we saw Buck Pierce when he applied for the Saskatchewan Roughriders job, back to his team to say, hey, look, this is what they're offering. What do you have? He was happy to leave, clearly, and took the opportunity to do it.
Is he going to take his quarterback with him? Who is the starting QB next year, week 1, for the Ottawa Red Blacks?
You know what? It is a great question. I know I've already referenced Drew Brown and the magic he could do. I have thought about that, right? I mean, he's going, Ryan Dinwiddie is going to attract players, much like any other head coach would attract players who he has relationships with. Is Chad Kelly one of those guys? Possibly, but I think if you look at, maybe you don't want to come in and do a whole bunch right away, right? I mean, maybe you do, right? As I mentioned, the Red Blacks were 4-14. If there was any team that you could kind of tear down, it's probably them. But, that is an interesting question. I don't know. My guess would probably, if he could get Chad Kelly, my guess is he would go for him. And that's nothing against Drew Brown. It's just if you look at the season that Drew Brown had last year, some of the injury stuff, that's obviously a concern to any head coach. That being said, I just think what he was able to do with Nick Arbuckle in a pinch, if he could take the skill set of Drew Brown and really bring out the best in that, I think that could also be a winning formula if Drew Brown can stay healthy. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Drew and his game and the guy he is, but it will be interesting, Huss. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but I got no idea at this point. I'm sure he's thinking about those things as they get into the offseason, deciding what their team's going to look like in 2026.
Well, listen, here's a Bomber-centric take or possibility that I will throw out to you. Dinwiddie gets Kelly to join him as the starter. They don't have the money to go around, so Drew Brown's out in Ottawa. If that was the case, could there be a reunion here in Winnipeg where he gets a contract that he's making, maybe not starter money this year, but it goes up to starter money next year, and that becomes the succession plan that we've been kind of waiting for as to what happens at the end of the Zach Collaros run, which just got extended by 1 year into the 2026 season.
So what you just described would I would argue is what it would have to be, right? And so would Drew Brown be willing to take a pay cut after making starters money last year to come to Winnipeg on a promise, I guess it would be, that he would be the future of the franchise? I mean, that's a lot to gamble if you have other options, right? If you don't have other options, or, if you don't have other options, which I don't understand why Drew Brown wouldn't have other options. Let's say, for instance, say Ryan Dinwiddie wanted to bring Chad Kelly to Ottawa and that freed up Drew Brown. Well, what's stopping Toronto from calling Drew Brown and saying, hey, we'll pay you starters money. We need a starter. Come over here and run our team. Would he be willing to forego that to come to a backup role? I don't know. And the reason why I say this, Huss, is that would have to be the situation, because in the conversations I've had with Drew Brown, including when I was in Ottawa this year, I mean, I asked him about, a potential quarterback controversy, either when he left from Ottawa or in the future here. And he would, he did not mince words when he said, when he expressed his gratitude, his respect, his friendship with Zach Collaros, and how he would never in a million years be the person who replaced him. Like that's how honest he was in that. It says, like, I don't think Drew Brown would, who knows, depending again on opportunities. I don't think Drew Brown, based on what he's told me, would come to Winnipeg if it meant Zach Collaros being cut. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's what Drew Brown said. So, we'll see.
Yeah,
I mean, again,
would
opinions can change,
that,
circumstances can change.
And Zach's not getting cut by the Bombers. I don't.
Well,
think
and the thing is I don't know that Drew Brown's. Exactly. So, and I don't know that Drew Brown is going to be interested in taking. Here's the thing: if you pay, so I guess there's a world where you can convince Zach again, because didn't he already renegotiated his contract for this season? If you can convince him to come back for $350,000, $400K, and then give Drew Brown $175 to $250, you're in that range of starting quarterbacks, and you have two quarterbacks. That would be a high price, backup quarterback option. But again, maybe that's the cost of doing business to keep him around, keep him in the system, right? There's still moving parts here in Winnipeg. Who's going to be the head coach? Who's going to be the GM for the Bombers next year? They're going to have a say in that. I don't know if I see the reality of that situation where Zach Collaros and Drew Brown are on the same team simply because of the market. And I just don't know why Drew Brown would want to come play shotgun in Winnipeg when he'd have an opportunity to be a number one somewhere else.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes without saying that if there was a team that had a starting spot for him, that's there. But I mean, to me, if that happened, Toronto's the only spot. And I mean, maybe they want to keep going with Arbuckle. If that's not there, it's not anywhere in the West. It's not Hamilton. It's certainly not Montreal, and it wouldn't be Ottawa. So if it's not Toronto, then what does he do? And if Zach Collaros is clear that this is his final year, I mean, he extended one more season, to have Drew and those guys together, I would suggest, and I would argue that it would be money well spent to have a good backup quarterback. We saw what happened, and even though the Bombers managed to win a few games with Chris Streveler, I don't think there's any argument that a Drew Brown-led offense would give you a far better chance to win consistently if Zach wasn't available to go. And obviously he missed some time this year. And then the big question of 2027, what do you do when Zach's no longer playing, assuming that is the end of the road and one more year next year? Drew would be a good one. It's going to give us lots to talk about next week on CFL 110 as we get ready for the Grey Cup. Gang, if you want more on the matchups this week, the big stories around it, we'll get to it. Just quickly, Jeff, before we go, and I know you got a meeting, we'll get out. There's been a lot of people in Toronto, our pal Steve Simmons and others, saying, well, with Ryan Dinwiddie gone, the Argos have to go get Mike O'Shea. I can't in a million years imagine Mike O'Shea deciding to leave Winnipeg, where the franchise is right now with what he's done, to go and play 13 road games or whatever is next year for the Toronto Argonauts in a team that doesn't seem to be supported by their ownership, and certainly not by the majority of fans in Toronto.
Yeah, so I was wondering when you're going to ask me about whether or not Mike was going to land in Toronto, and I'd be lying to you if he wasn't the first person I thought about when I saw the Dinwiddie news. But again, the more I thought about it, the more I personally think it wouldn't be a good marriage between the two for some of the reasons you just mentioned. There's a couple different things. Like, Mike's a good leader. Mike's a good leader, and he's a hard worker, right? And if you look at his tenure in Winnipeg, some lean years to start with, right? He's a slow burn culture builder, right? Like, he's the kind of guy, like, he'll go in, he'll take a whole season to analyze, look at guys, whatever, try to find that core, much like he did in Winnipeg, right? But here's the kicker, Huss. Like, by 2018. Still disappointing results for Winnipeg, still riding that big drought. It wasn't until Zach Collaros came into the mix that this team really started being good again. So I'm not trying to discredit Mike's run here or whatever, but it is interesting, and I wonder what would happen if Zach Collaros didn't arrive here. And I wrote this in my column, and I've written this before. Mike wasn't a huge fan of trading for Zach. It wasn't that he was a huge fan of Zach. They had time together in Toronto, but he wasn't advocating for that trade. As media back then, we were kept asking and asking and asking. He never cleared off on that trade. So it's like, you wonder, just like, so this idea that Mike O'Shea is going to go to Toronto with what you said, ownership that doesn't really give a crap about, the 3-down game is pushing the Americanization. If it was any organization, could you imagine Mike O'Shea sitting there at the podium with nobody asking him any questions and having to defend the CFL to an ownership group of his own team that he's running, who doesn't really want to have the Canadian game, or at least not the way it is? Like, that would be so bizarre. And the other thing is, there's too many moving pieces. I just said it's a slow burn situation for Mike, who also, and I think I know you told me to be quick here, but I'm going on a rant. Mike's a head coach. Mike isn't a coordinator, isn't a GM, isn't any of those things. He's a head coach. He's the only one in the CFL who's a head coach, and not Ryan Dinwiddie just got hired as the OC, the head coach, and the GM. So but here's the thing, Mike has a ton of power. He just doesn't have to do the contracts. He has just as much, if not more power than Kyle Walters. So like, where are you going to get that? Anywhere else in the CFL? Nowhere. So Mike belongs in Winnipeg. I know there's a lot of people who are like, you should go, whatever. I do think he belongs in Winnipeg. He's put in good years. But I'm going to be interested to see what that negotiation looks like. I don't think that negotiation is going to be anything like, I'm not going to say it's drastically different per se, but I don't think it's going to be a lot like the other ones. I think that Mike doesn't have the leverage he used to have. He might be able to use his Toronto as leverage, but I do think that with the results of this past season, I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's been here for a long time. I do predict Mike will be back. Like I said, I think he's the guy for Winnipeg. I don't think there's another guy out there that should replace him, at least not right now. He's done a lot of great things in Winnipeg, but this is where he belongs, and I don't see him going to Toronto.
Well, big fun week talking all of these stories around the league next week as we get ready for the Grey Cup. Of course, tomorrow it's Hamilton and Montreal early, BC and Saskatchewan late, and the winners will be here in the Peg for the 112th Grey Cup at Princess Auto Stadium. Hammer, have a great weekend. Looking forward to a lot to talk about next week when the fans from around the league get here, and we'll have a Grey Cup edition of CFL 110. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Huss. Looking forward to it, and we'll catch up next week.
You bet. There's Jeff Hamilton at Jeff K. Hamilton on X, Winnipeg Free Press. You can check out that CFL rundown and more there. All right, we're going to hook up with Brandon Rewucki and then Murat in San Jose. Of course, Princess Auto Stadium, as we mentioned, the home of the Bombers and the home of the Grey Cup. Princess Auto, as we welcome everyone to Winnipeg, Princess Auto, synonymous with Winnipeg. Founded and headquartered right here in the Peg, and now coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new waiting for you at Princess Auto right now. Pop by and see them in store today, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. I had a little bit of the white stuff last night, and while that might freak out a lot of people, you know who it's not freaking out? Terminator and our friends out in Gimli at Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba's Power Sports Superstore. They are ready to go right now to get going with the snow and with snowmobile season. And ahead of the season, they've got amazing deals on right now on Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds before the snow creeps in. But of course, they've got so much more than snowmobiles there. ATVs, side-by-sides, personal transportation. We've got the Argo, the Suzuki and Roxor, Evolution golf carts, boats and outboards, RVs and fish houses for the upcoming ice fishing season, and so much more in gear and accessories, and the best selection of parts in the province. If you got to fix your sled or something coming up for the season, the amazing staff at Chud's with more than 140 years experience will be happy to take care of you, as they've been doing for generations here in Manitoba, over 80 years in the business. Up in Gimli, the leaders when it comes to power sports, Chud's Power Sports, corner of Highway 8 and 231 in Gimli, online at chudspowersports.com. We'll get to the NFL Power Poll a little later on when Hacksaw joins us on the show. All our Power Polls brought to you by our friends at Chud's Power Sports. And hey, before we bring in Brandon Rewucki, speaking of that winter, make sure your car is ready to go. More importantly, your battery, because if the battery don't go, the car don't go. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are your local option for the best in price and service for batteries for literally everything. And of course, as Donnie always says, don't overpay at the big box stores. Beat the freeze before it beats you. Free battery testing right now. Sale on booster cables and booster packs. And the best prices in town, period, on batteries, beating the pants off those big box stores. So get on down to Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive, get your battery tested if you need it. And if you do need a new battery, make sure you're shopping local, supporting local, and saving money at the same time with Manitoba Battery, 2 Winnipeg locations. And of course, you can shop online as well at manitobabattery.com. All right, before we head down to San Jose and welcome in Murat, let's hook up with our pal Brandon Rewucki, the host of Skates and Plates. Let's bring in our pal Brandon Rewucki to look ahead to a big weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. Rew, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are things over there?
Well, things are good. It was kind of weird having a couple days off in between games. And we were saying before, you said that game at Tuesday that started at midnight. It certainly was a late one. We had a couple days to get ready for this one tonight. And I got to tell you, I mean, this weekend is going to be really fun, I think, for Jet fans. You can stay up. I mean, it's a Friday night game. The Sunday at 9 isn't perfect, but it certainly will be worth watching because this Anaheim team we're going to see Sunday has been one of the great stories of the season so far. But let's start off with the Sharks and the Macklin Celebrini. I'm not sure that they're going to be in the mix as we get down the stretch, but I'll tell you what, take Sharks overs and watch the games because they are fun. And I can't wait for this game tonight to see how they look and what the Jets can do against them.
Yeah, and it's just crazy because he's a 19-year-old kid in all reality, and he's just already become the face of the franchise. And how much longer till he's the face of the league? And I was talking with my brother about this, but not even who would you pick to build your franchise around because he might be the guy in terms of like longevity, but even just this season, Huss, how many guys are you taking ahead of him? Like, I don't think there's 10 forwards. And we talk about, Team Canada and would it be nice for him to have some experience, being in and around the roster. I'm not like that. It's like, he's one of the 12 best forwards we got. Get him in figure out a way to get him in the lineup. I mean, he's just, nobody really foresaw this meteoric rise out of him. Like, maybe if he was 25 and he's doing this, it makes sense, but he's just flat out one of the best players on the planet. You don't even have to do the age thing. He is kind of Sidney Crosby light at this point in his career. And it's going to be fun watching him again safely.
You know what? I mean, the name Crosby continues to come up when we're hearing about comparisons for Macklin Celebrini. And listen, if you're 15 games or whatever into your second season and you're still 19 years old and you're getting compared with Sidney Crosby, one of the greatest in the history of the sport, we're talking about a special player. And you know what's funny to me? Like, I don't know why this is, and maybe this was just a personal observation, but there was so much hype with Connor Bedard coming in. Like, if you had told me before they played, just based on everything that we'd heard and the draft and all that, who would be a bigger star? I mean, I think there was so much more going into Connor Bedard, and maybe it's because Celebrini was a little less known, played as a 17-year-old in U.S. college hockey as opposed to junior, but I got to tell you, I mean, I don't think it's even close. And this isn't really to disrespect Bedard. I mean, he's having a nice season. Yeah. He's coming around. Everyone would want to have him on their team. But I'm sort of with you right now. I mean, the last 2 number 1 picks in the National Hockey League, Celebrini and the start of Matthew Schaefer on the blue line in New York Islanders. I mean, it's been pretty crazy how good these number 1 overall picks have been this quickly, because that doesn't usually happen this way.
Yeah, like right out of the gate. Where, again, how high is Schaefer on the D list? Might be close to the top 10 too as an 18-year-old. It's just absurd. And we knew these guys, kids these days can come right out of the gate ready to go because it's just a different animal when it comes to, your borderline professionals at like 14, 15 years old now with the amount of training that you get. But yeah, Celebrini specifically is just, he does so many things that you don't see out of youngsters. I mean, we've all watched that clip of him going toe to toe against Mo Sider against the Red Wings the other night. And I mean, that right there, like if you've got a young kid on your team and your organization at any level, just show that clip on repeat and be like, do you want it this bad? Because that's what the best does. And it's funny too, because it's not even a goal or an assist, right? But it just that really encapsulates why he's been so successful at such a young age. And Bedard certainly has the more popular plays, or at least maybe highlight reel, especially when they were 16, 17, where you watch him play and it's like, how many guys can shoot the puck like that? But I don't know why Celebrini necessarily went under the radar as much as he did, because it was basically apparent from game one last year that, this guy's different. And but I mean, great for, we always wondered too when the next surge of Canadian talent and where it was going to come from. I mean, if Connor Bedard is your third best future of Team Canada, he's got like 18 points right now. Like he's over a point a game player. Yeah, I think the country's going to be just fine for the next couple of decades.
It's funny that you mentioned, the Olympic team. We're sitting here as Canadian hockey fans looking at all these incredible players. I mean, Scheifele's up there at the top. He's trying to be on the team. You've got Bedard, you've got Celebrini. And then there's the goaltending. And I mean, we saw that clown Binnington, 2 nights ago, like trying to steal Ovi's 900th puck, which he let in. And I mean, he's been horrible this year, as have the Blues, although they did get a shutout win last night. I believe that was Hofer in net for St. Louis on the road. But I mean, you look at the start of Samuel Montembeault, the start of Binnington right now. Like, as good as this team looks everywhere else, this concern we had for so long as to who was going to be playing net seems to be more urgent than ever right now, just a couple months ahead. And the funny thing is, and I still don't know what Logan Thompson did in the past to get on the wrong side of the Hockey Canada brass, but whatever it was, they need to overlook that right now, because when you look at his numbers so far, there's no one even close. And I'll throw Darcy Kemper in there as well, as a guy that, has won a cup before, has been in big games. Like to see him on the team. But I mean, there's no clear-cut, obvious guy, I'd say, outside of Logan Thompson, based on his last couple of years and the numbers right now, that you'd feel good about putting in the net, knowing the Hellebucks and whatnot that are playing for the other countries that are going to be in the Olympic Games tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Logan Thompson should have been on the team last year too, right? So it's not like he's come out of nowhere, at least. Like, you look at his numbers, he's really never had a bad season. Like, he's just consistently been a really good goalie. So he doesn't necessarily have the big game experience that Binnington does. But I mean, he's been a part, or at least was around, a Knights team that basically goes deep into the postseason every single year. And I mean, he's been arguably the best goalie in the NHL this year. So I mean, he's the starter. I know Binnington had his heroics at the Four Nations, but you can't put him near the starter's net at this moment. I mean, the good thing, Huss, is that goalie depth doesn't necessarily matter at tournaments like this. Like, you can only play one of them. I know Canada has won a couple gold medals, throwing in the second or third guy at some of these tournaments. But if they can have one guy that's hot and ready to go in on his game, they don't necessarily need to worry about, who's going to be the 2-3 guy. But I would say, Thompson doesn't have the pedigree necessarily, or the name recognition of all of Team USA's goalies, or a Shesterkin, maybe even a Dostal out of Anaheim. But you put the numbers up against all those guys, he's really not that far off. And as we saw against USA, Canada just needs good in net. When you're that deep and that loaded at each and every position, it's just, can we have a guy that can basically keep us to, if we keep it at under 2, we're not losing a game out there in Milan.
Yeah, and I mean, the other guy that we didn't mention is Aiden Hill, who was with the club last time. He's only played 5 games this year. And I think the whole Logan Thompson thing was, it's pretty clear that Vegas preferred Hill over Thompson and sent him packing at the draft when it was there at the Sphere in Vegas. And it's like, that was all Hockey Canada needed to know. And they sort of wrote the guy off. They better be checking back in with him. Just crazy that he wasn't even invited to the camp in the summer, considering the season that he had last year. But hey, finishing off the weekend, I cannot wait for this Sunday game. Like, both of these games, I think, are just really fun games against young, exciting teams. And the Ducks train, dude, it continues to roll. They put up 7 last night on the Stars in Dallas. They're 9-3-1. Coach Q, what a return to the National Hockey League and taking a team we knew that had a ton of talent. And I think really speeding up the process for them to be, a contender, a playoff team. I mean, to be honest, right now, I think the Ducks are that team that may be surprised from the Pacific. We've talked a lot about Utah. I don't think that would be a big surprise if they get in. And while some teams that were in the playoffs last year really struggle, it's the Ducks that have sort of announced themselves as maybe here sooner than people expected. Just thoughts on the Ducks and we talked a lot about Celebrini. Leo Carlsson, another incredible young star that's leading the way for Anaheim.
Yeah. It's just Leo Carlsson too. Nobody else on the Ducks that has any former ties with a Flyers organization.
10 goals for your boy Cutter.
Yeah, well, that's great. We'll see what he does when the chips are down. And we all saw what he did there in Philadelphia when the physicality ramped up a little bit, and he wanted none of that. But I'm drinking a lot of copium right now, watching Coach A lead the league.
How's Drysdale doing?
Drysdale, he's actually been pretty good, but we don't have to get into that. But I mean, it shouldn't be. I guess I was maybe thinking this might be a year too soon for Anaheim, that they would take like a minor step this year, and then next year would be the one where it's like, kind of like what we're seeing now. But when you have those 19, 20-year-olds taken at the top of the draft, and a guy like Leo Carlsson, like, when they explode, they explode. And, he's the number one center in the NHL. And you just see what that does for a franchise. It completely changes your trajectory and your outlook immediately, regardless of how old you are. And he's delivered that in a big way. And what it does too, especially with their forward group, like they've had so many high draft picks, but him officially announcing himself on this stage just slots everybody in the exact spot you'd want them to be. Because now Mason McTavish doesn't necessarily have to be the guy. You can put him down as a secondary centerpiece. Troy Terry can be really the guy riding the tertiary shotgun when Carlsson and Gauthier are driving the bus. And then Jackson Lacombe continues his ascent out of nowhere into being a top defenseman. And Dostal's one of the best goalies in the league, right? And so it's you do wonder if this doesn't mirror the rise of the Blackhawks when Joel Quenneville took over there, where he had, Taves, Kane, and then the rest of the riches that Chicago had at that time. That if this isn't,
kind of feels like it.
Yeah, this might be 2.0 here, where they make a couple of. I mean, there's deep playoff runs coming in this team's future. But maybe the most surprising thing about Anaheim that Jets fans will be interested in is the resurgence of Jacob Trouba. Like, he was on the scrap heap. The Rangers didn't want any part of their captain, and he wasn't all that good in Anaheim when he got moved last year. And he's been tremendous for them so far. So you're right.
Well, it's not just Trouba. I mean, you know what? Like, obviously, we're going to spend all our time talking about these exciting young studs and Leo Carlsson and McTavish and Cutter Gauthier. But you mentioned Trouba. Like, the veterans that they brought in are playing a big, big role. I mean, hell, Chris Kreider, we thought was done at the end of last year. He was done in the Four Nations. He's back to being Cy Young Kreider. He's got 9 goals in 9 games, 1 assist. But again, that's a veteran guy that scored at a high level, that has won in the past. I mean, a perfect guy to bring in. And then, of course, they're led by their captain, the executioner himself, Radko Gudas, one of the biggest psychos in the league. Like, I give the Ducks a lot of credit as to how they built this team, knowing the priority was these young players, but they've actually surrounded with some guys that still have some tread on the tires. And those guys, I think, frankly, are being lifted up by the excitement and all this young juice they've got in that lineup.
I mean, you're bang on there. Now, the interesting thing will be, does this continue January, February, March, when the young guys are kind of going through the grind for the first, like Leo Carlsson's had a decent amount of injury history, and so he's never played 80 games, right?
Well,
so
even last year, even last year, they were like kind of load managing him in advance.
Exactly.
I mean, they said, hey, we're going to play him. I don't know what he played, like 55 games or something like that last year. So this is the first year that it's going to be, okay, he's going to play all the games as a regular. But they did sort of treat him with kid gloves a little bit, which certainly hurt the numbers overall. And it's sort of a unique way of doing it. But whatever they did, it's working right now. And they're not voluntarily sitting Leo Carlsson for any games anytime soon.
He'll be playing. He'll be playing a decent amount moving forward. But they've got a good mix there. Like it is a good team in the sense that, you know, you drafted the top 5 for 7 years in a row, essentially. Yeah, you're gonna get some good players. And they've turned it around pretty quickly. And it helps too, right? Where you find, I mean, this is how Tampa became Tampa. This is how Dallas got to where they are. Drafting at the top is great. If you can find a couple studs outside the first round, that's when you get into powerhouse territory. And the fact that they've gotten Jackson Lacombe, the fact that they've gotten Lucas Dostal, you know, there's probably a few other supplementary pieces you could throw in there. That's when you've got the making of a team nobody wants to come up to face. And it's funny too, because they traded one of the other leading scorers in the NHL, Trevor Zegras, and basically meant nothing to them, right? Like, you know, it was a situation that became untenable for sure. But I mean, that's the level of riches that they have out there in Anaheim, that they can move a guy who's having a tremendous start to the season. And they're the highest scoring team in the NHL, regardless of that.
Jets at the Sharks tonight, Ducks on Sunday. I can't help but think that maybe in a year or two, we're going to be getting an epic playoff series between the Sharks and the Ducks, who have not even been in the playoff conversation. And just thinking about Celebrini and Carlson going head to head and all these young players we've talked about, pretty fun. But at the same point, this is a point in the season with the Jets on the road, having dropped that first game in LA on the road trip. Pretty important points to be picking up. And, listen, the Jets have done very well at beating teams below them in the standings. Now, the Ducks right now are right there with them, if not, I guess, a half point ahead of them. Sharks obviously struggling, but important for them to get back into the win column, because a lot of the good that they've done so far, Brandon, could sort of be wiped if you go on this long West Coast road trip and don't come back with the results that you want before getting into maybe a tougher, at least, schedule when it comes to the perception of these teams. Although these are not going to be easy games. I mean, the Sharks are beating teams, and we just went through what the Ducks have been doing to literally everybody right now. The team's going to need to be ready to go defensively, and certainly Connor Hellebuck. These nights in the past have maybe been easier nights. That is not going to be the case this weekend for the Jets goaltender.
Yeah, and I would also like to throw in that this is a good time, I think, when we talk about Hellebuck's workload, like, get Eric Comrie 2 starts on this road trip. There's like this, I get the California part of it. There isn't too much travel in state there, but like, you had the long trip out there. You're going all over the West Coast. You got to fly back afterwards. Like, this would be a prime opportunity to get Comrie at least 2 starts in here. But you're right in that, like, you got the Kraken, the Flames, the Canucks on tap after that. Like, a lot of the mushy middle you're facing. I mean, you can not only keep your spot near the top of the Central, but almost as importantly, if not more importantly, you could put, I think, an insurmountable gap between you and the bubble in the Central. Like, if they have a strong road trip here, you could be looking at being 10 points up on Minnesota, St. Louis. And then it's just Chicago, Nashville. That might not be too far off that pace either. And not that you cruise to the postseason, but the stress level certainly is mitigated a decent amount there, right? So it's a pretty juicy opportunity here. And you're getting healthier, right? With Lowry coming back, and I think he's going to be a lot sharper in his second and third game over the weekend here. So it is a really, really important stretch for the club here, where I think we kind of all agree they almost found money with this 9-3-1 start, despite not playing all that well. So if you can elevate your level of play a little bit, maybe put together, after the loss in LA, put together a 4-1 or a 4-2 run in your next 6. They'll be looking really, really strong heading into that fabled American Thanksgiving mark, pretty much 7-8 spots up on the playoff line at that point.
Yeah, that's certainly where they want to be. I don't think you're going to get 2 starts from Comrie on this roadie, partly because, he played the Pittsburgh game going in. They had 2 days off. They played the Kings, another 2 days off. And to be honest, like with what Anaheim's throwing at you, I think you want Hellebuyck in for San Jose and Anaheim. I would expect Comrie to get the Vancouver game. And then Hellebuyck probably goes Seattle, Calgary. And then if they want to go back to Comrie, they can do that against Columbus with, again, 2 days. So then it'll be 6 days between Hellebuyck's next start when our old pal Nick Ehlers is in town with the Carolina Hurricanes. By the way, if you haven't got your tickets yet for that game, join us in the WST section. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST to get your tickets for Ehlers' return. Should be a lot of fun. Rue, you have yourself a great weekend, my friend. What's kicking on skates and plates for folks when they hit the pod?
Yeah, we'll get into, I guess, the weekend on Tuesday's episode. Had a little food review for birthday dinner earlier this week. So a couple new places were visited. So a little bit of everything there. But all's good. Appreciate it.
Love it. Folks, grab skates and plates wherever you get Winnipeg Sports Talk on the pod. Have a good weekend, pal. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you next week.
You too, guys. Have fun.
All right, good stuff. We got more hockey talk coming up. We're heading down to San Jose. Murat is going to join us in just a couple of moments. And when Murat's there, we'll discuss how things looked at the skate this morning for tonight's game. And, of course, figure out what the lines are going to look like. And, of course, we always present the lines by our friends at Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years in the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. As you know, they are captain approved, proud supporters of the Jets, and now the leading residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical company in town. Now, while you might not be having a big commercial need for Clean Line services, you never know when you're going to need them, especially for plumbing mishaps. And that's why Clean Line, much like Adam Lowry has the back of the Jets, they've got your back 24/7, 365 with emergency service available. Find out more on all of Clean Line services online at cleanline.ca. We got a big one tonight and Sunday as well. Man, it's going to be a fun night. Maybe a great time to get together with your gang of Boston Pizza. See the Jets play a couple exciting young teams and take in the new flight club menu, I should say. Pizza flights, wing flights, chicken bite flights, and new fry flights available. And you'll have a chance to win Boston Pizza's grand prize trip for two to California to see the Jets play the Ducks February 27th, including flights, hotel, and amazing game tickets. Just speaking of BP, here's a little save the date for you WSTers. I believe it is Wednesday, December 17th. We're going to be doing a little holiday gathering / Jets watch party at Boston Pizza, just working on the exact location. But December 17th, St. Louis Blues, 7 o'clock game. Hopefully you'll join us at BP. And hey, if you are staying at home to watch the game, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com and get it hot and fresh to your door. Of course, many of you love the Olympic jerseys. Myself, not so much. I can tell you very soon they're going to be coming in at Royal Sports, because if it's a Jet jersey, if it's a Canada jersey, if it's Jays merch, Royal Sports is the place to get it all right here in Winnipeg. The biggest supply and stock of literally everything, which is a perfect time as we get ready for the holidays, whether you're looking for the Jet fan in your family, the Bomber fan, someone with an NFL team, a different NHL team. They've got it all at Royal Sports. You can take care of everyone on your list that's a sports fan in one spot. And of course, they're also the hockey superstore for over 50 years with everything from full equipment to pucks, stick tape, skate sharpening as well. 750 Pembina Highway, Royal Sports. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg, especially heading into the holidays for latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, just before we bring in Murat, it is Friday. I know Hacksaw wants a 1919. Let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, let's hit down to California and welcome in Murat of The Athletic. Murat, great to have you on the program. By the way, just first off, I saw your Twitter. I know you had a loss of a close friend. Just wanted to extend condolences. I know a lot of people sharing the same in the chat. Never easy to do that, but I really appreciate you jumping on with us despite all that.
Thank you for that, and thanks to anybody who's been sending that in. Robert Reimer was Jets fan. He had a Jets flag on his hospital cart that he's pretty proud of. So on brand anyway. Thanks for that.
No, it was really sweet. The thread that you posted out. We know it can be a real tough time. I tell you what, I mean, moving on to kind of the toy department as we sort of live in here, talking sports and the Jets. I'm really excited about this weekend. I mean, it's been a while since many fans were fired up for the San Jose or Anaheim spots on the trip. Other than if you're actually able to go there and be in California to watch the games. But I'll tell you what, Murat, I mean, and we'll get into your piece, which I thought was very astute in The Athletic about the importance of this November to the Jets season. But just as far as the next 3 days go, we're going to get a chance to see the Jets go up against two of the more exciting young teams in the league with some of the most exciting young players, starting with Macklin Celebrini tonight.
Yeah, how quickly this young man is becoming one of the faces of the league, or one of the stories that you kind of have to watch. You can't really get away from the Macklin Celebrini highlight reel. It's been impressive to see the Sharks above 500, kind of in a playoff spot, sort of in that mix right now. And a large part of that is because this kid is playing beyond his years offensively and having an impact defensively as well. Sharks should be a wildly impressive transition team, should have a lot of curves to throw the Jets' way. And that's a fun thought, right? Because there were times when San Jose could be a little bit duller, and there were some of those goaltending displays that we've seen in recent years. And same with the Ducks, Leo Carlsson. I mean, goodness, what a story he's been. And I saw some speculation today, or maybe it was Dom Lucian at The Athletic being like, wait a second, could Leo Carlsson be Sweden's number one center right now? I hope I've got that right and I'm attributing it correctly. But there has been just some spectacular young people performances in the NHL, and no better spots than Anaheim on Sunday and San Jose tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at these two teams, what they've done lately. I mean, the Sharks had a really tough start to the season where they just couldn't find a win. They were blowing leads late. They were losing in OT, but they won 4 of their last 6 and wins over the Wild, the Devils, the Avalanche, and a 6-1 win over the Kraken in their last game. This team is starting to get results. And then you look at Anaheim, Murat. I mean, the Ducks are first place in the Pacific Division. They've got a 9-3-1 record, a point ahead of the Winnipeg Jets. They just put up a 7th spot in Dallas on the Stars last night as they continue their winning streak over the Panthers, scored 7 against them, the New Jersey Devils by 3, the Red Wings, and the Panthers again. I mean, nobody should be taking the Anaheim Ducks lightly either way. I mean, both of these teams playing some good hockey right now, and the Jets are going to need to be full marks to get what they came there for.
Yeah, 100% they do. And I think back to last week at about this time with wins over Chicago and Pittsburgh, who were playing more of that transition style. They had more of what was working for those teams was off the rush, I would say. And I think Winnipeg did a really good job to handle that well. It seems to me that these two teams are playing at another level beyond that and have more dynamic to offer. Even Chris Kreider just completely revitalized in Anaheim as well. So yesterday at practice in El Segundo at the Toyota Sports Performance Center, I noticed that Scott Arniel and company were really drilling transition defense over and over, and guys were getting tired, and he was calling lock it in, just a couple more of these kind of deal. And I think that they are going to be as prepared as possible. And even still, I mean, it's been a while since we've seen these teams quite so good. It could still be a bit surprising. It could still be almost delightful to see their youthful exuberance at play.
Remo, if you can, let's fire up and take a look at what the lines were in the morning skate heading into tonight's games. with the Clean Line Jets lines presented by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years, and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets, captain approved. Looking at this, a couple interesting tweaks. We're going to see Hayden Fleury back in after Colin Miller played. He'll be on the third pairing with Schenn, Stan and Pionk, Morrissey and DeMello. No surprise that the top two lines are staying together. Connor Scheifele, Velarde, Nemetsnikov, Taves, Iafallo. We have seen a little shakeup in the bottom six. Adam Lowry with Nito Niederreiter and Nikita Chibrikov gets another chance to pop back in playing with the captain. And Pearson and Koepke with Ford. Thoughts on the changes to the lineup, including Chibrikov getting a chance to ride shotgun with the captain?
Yeah, it's nice to see that because in the long term, that might be where you'd imagine a successful version of Chibrikov playing, whether it's purely in a shutdown capacity on a line with Lowry or just being a guy who you can play in your top nine. He is a threat to score when he gets into good spots, and ideally he's going to be winning a ton of battles and making himself a bit of a pain. I thought when he was playing with Iafallo and Taves, Chibrikov, a few plays died on his stick. I thought that there was a little bit of, okay, he won the battle, but then what's next? What's going to come next? And I thought that he hadn't quite shown that. So he comes out of the lineup. Now he comes back in, refreshed, ideally, ready to take the next step. And if there's nothing else that you know about the player, it's that he will never cheat you in terms of energy level and effort level. And that should hopefully make him a good fit with those two guys who, get tough minute assignments. Lambeau comes out of the lineup too. Koepke, Ford, Pearson. That's going to be a hardworking line as Winnipeg looks to form its identity in its bottom six.
As far as the blue line goes, the insertion of Miller last game and then going back to Fleury, is that just a matter of, hey, we got to get this guy a game at some point? And with a lot of hockey coming up over the time, they thought that was the time to do it against the Kings?
I think so. And then there's the idea that Schenn had his hand was banged up. I think it was his hand that was just not quite clear what that injury was or what have you. I think Arneal was asked if it was a healthy scratch at one point, and he said he had a little something he was worried about. So I'm not sure of the details on the injury front. All the same, they needed to get him games. They need to get all of these guys into it. I think Fleury Miller might be your better combination down there, but Schenn's played at a high level at various times in his career, and I think they hope that he works. I think that they really like what he brings in terms of being a good teammate and all that battle level stuff. So I think they continue to hope that that's going to work out more so than maybe his results have shown.
Now, Murat, I want to get to your latest at The Athletic, which talks about the importance of this November for the Winnipeg Jets. They've had a great start, despite missing Adam Lowry up until Tuesday and still waiting for the return of Cole Perfetti and Dylan Sandberg. But with this big road trip out west, some important games before we get into December, we know the stakes, or at least the history of what that U.S. Thanksgiving date means to playoffs. How important and what's at stake for the Winnipeg Jets, and what would a great month of November do to the rest of their season?
Well, I think back to what made Winnipeg so successful last year, and part of it was its incredible start. Part of it was setting a literal record for the best 15-game start in NHL history. By the time that they eventually reached that American Thanksgiving date, and you've seen all that evidence that, if you're in a playoff spot by that date, odds are you're going to be in one by the end of the season. They were phenomenal. And heading into this season, there were some challenges. Those injuries that we talked about, you got Cole Perfetti in a regular jersey this morning. He might be an option for Sunday. I got to say, he might be. So that's coming back. Lowry's back. Sandberg's not too far around the corner, but the schedule's harder. This road trip is more intense. There's some really good young teams on it. They started, was it 9-3-1 or 9-3-0 for their first 12 games? To replicate that in their next 12 to close out November would be a really tough ask, even if they raise their game. I think the most important thing, though, to take away from this chunk of games is that as they get their guys back, this is identity building season. This is, okay, so sometimes we won because the power play did it. Sometimes it was Hellebuck early. This is, we're going to do this at 5-on-5, and that's how they beat Pittsburgh and Chicago last week. This is going to be, we're going to have different elements to the game. A middle six that can play the tough competition, whether it's Lowry or whether it's Taves. As guys come back and as Winnipeg establishes its game, if it can do that, If the Jets can get if their process right, they're going to head into that U.S. Thanksgiving with a playoff spot, with cushion on that playoff spot. And then if they do that right, they can start preparing for the playoffs immediately. There is no better load management team candidate in the NHL than the Winnipeg Jets this year. I spit that the Dodgers won. I believed in the Blue Jays, but if there's any lessons you can take from the Dodgers about how they rested their guys on their way back from injury, Winnipeg is the most NHL-ready example of that, and we can get in all of that. But I think that the sooner Winnipeg locks down its spot, the better January is going to look, the better March is going to look, and the better those playoffs are going to look, and that's the whole focus of the season.
And I mean, listen, those months of January and March are the schedule is so packed. I mean, you're almost never getting 2 days off between games. You got some back-to-backs in there, 2 extended homestands, which hopefully will be good for the club, but a lot of hockey to be played. And, it can't be overlooked, the overall age of this team. And as I said, this team is not going to be scratching and clawing, trying to win another President's Trophy. It's trying to your point, put themselves in the best chance to be the best version of themselves when it matters. And that, of course, is game 83 of the playoffs. Just back to Perfetti for a minute, Murat. He was out at the skate today in the regular contact jersey. He apparently won't be a player tonight, but you mentioned he's a possibility for Sunday. I guess twofold. One, just maybe a statement. I thought Jonathan Toews was so good against the Los Angeles Kings in a tough playoff sort of style game. We know how smart he is. I'm even more excited about the potential of a Perfetti-Toews second line, which we hopefully will see very soon. When Perfetti gets back, Scott Arniel has plenty of options. And I asked Kevin Sawyer about this when he was on with us a couple days ago. Who's the best fit? Where do they go with the winger for Toews and Perfetti? And Kevin was honest. He said, to be frank, I don't know. And I'm not sure Scott Arniel knows right now. It could be a bit of a process. I mean, Vlad Nemesnikov's sure looking good right there. Alex Iafallo is capable of it. How do you see, where do you think they'll start, at least, when Perfetti plays his first game? Who's on the wing? And just in your opinion, who might be the best fit long-term for Toews and Perfetti, assuming they're going to be 2/3 of that second line?
Yeah, it is a great question. When they drew it up this summer, they put Nyquist on that line. But now he's day-to-day. Will he be there? All of that stuff. And maybe stylistically you want one of those puck possession, those dog on a bone type of players like Nemesnikov or Iafallo. Maybe there's more chemistry there. I also think that if you go back to Nemesnikov, Perfetti, and Ehlers, or if you go back to various stretches of Iafallo playing on that line as well, some of Cole Perfetti's best numbers have been with those two exact players in his NHL career so far. I think either one of them is a good fit. I also think I've noticed, I really like the way Nemesnikov plays with Toews. I think that a lot of the reasons why he's such a popular teammate, such one of those guys, the first name out of their mouth when you say, who's an underrated player, they say Nemesnikov. He does so many little things that puts the puck on Toews' stick in a good lane, or with the defender's back turned, or with just a few feet of space that maybe something can happen for it. I think those two players are clicking. I think that they're seeing eye to eye in a lot of different ways. And maybe that's just who Nemesnikov is, instant chemistry, Swiss Army knife type player. For me, as much as I like Iafallo and could say all the same things about him, I would want to get the first look at Nemesnikov, Toews, and Perfetti and just see how it goes for a little while, knowing you've got some great other options.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin's take was that, they might end up settling on a more Iafallo type just to have maybe a little bit more size and energy on the wall. But I mean, to be honest, Vlad is such a versatile player, and I got to tell you, and he spoke to it when he spoke yesterday. Of course, he's going into his 800th game tonight. Playing with a guy like Jonathan Toews is so smart. We could go through Vlad's goals, but a number of them have just been beautiful setups from Jonathan Toews, and he's basically just cashed in from deep in situations that it would almost be hard not to score. The fact of the matter is, it really has worked, and then you add in a player with the vision and the smarts of a Cole Perfetti, and I think you've got the making of a pretty darn good second line behind a line up top with Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde that have been tearing up opponents really since the first game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, what I like from Lions is when they're out they're outchancing teams and they're outscoring them. And we're seeing this chemistry build on that Taves line. They're not quite outchancing teams yet. You look at the numbers, they're not quite outscoring teams yet. But you've got that Connor Scheifele line with Velarde that has outscored and outchanced. They are so the chemistry is so good and is showing up in the goals numbers. Lowry and Niederreiter. I mean, last year they absolutely destroyed tough minutes competition, and they did it the year before that, and even the few games they got together the year before that. You can believe in that. And as Taves turns these moments where it's clear his offensive IQ is there and he's making that play to Nemesnikov for the redirection or some of the passes that he's made, as those become more frequent, as the conditioning gets there, as the games become, I want to say, harder in that sort of Kings playoff style mentality or what have you, ideally, we're going to see continued improvement as that chemistry builds. And assuming it gets there, because you can see so many moments of real goodness from that group, that's a pretty devastating top 9 when everybody is healthy and going. And then that leaves out hey, where does Gus Nyquist fit in? Where does that fourth line? What about Morgan Barron when he gets healthy and how good that group has been? It's easy to look at the Winnipeg Jets right now, especially with the top line on fire, and think, well, hey, they could be a wagon when everything gets clicking.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree. And the other thing that this is going to certainly ramp up, and we were already seeing, competition of Chibrikov and Ford and Lambert trying to get into the lineup. When Nyquist is healthy and Perfetti's back, just looking at the forwards, pretty nice situation, although it's tough to keep some guys out of the lineup, Murat, but there's going to be significant competition. And if guys are going to want to stay in the lineup, they're going to need to be staying on the right side of the coaching staff and being a positive influence on the team's results.
Yeah, that's a good point. When that gives the coach a little bit of leverage, doesn't it? And I think about this season, I know we talk about things like fatigue and the schedule and all that. And I got a buddy who works construction. He's a carpenter or whatever, and he laughs at it. He's like, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I go through what I do, and then I do it the next day, and I do it 13 out of 14 days. So there is a little bit of that, but he's not building houses in competition with a well-rested opponent or what have you. It's not quite exactly the same, as hard as that job is. So I look at this season and I see this increased game density. More than a game every other day. Because of the Olympics, that's even more intense, I think, than a large part of the Four Nations season was. That has a cost. And how do you navigate that? What do you do? Well, the Jets have invested a lot more in terms of their recovery this year. There's a few changes they've made to how they recover. Some of their travel decisions are based in a little bit more on the recovery side as well, and in addition to what happens in that room. And one of the ways you mitigate that is you have more than 12 good forwards, and I think the D still needs a little bit of help, to be honest, but you have a larger roster than you absolutely need. You cycle those guys in, and you try to mitigate the possibility of extra injuries or fatigue when they're playing more than every other day like they do in January and like they do in March.
Murat, Sharks tonight, Ducks tomorrow. The latest piece that we were just referring to, speaking of the importance of this upcoming November and what's at stake, is up at The Athletic right now, how the Jets' November can dictate the stretch run, Olympics crush, and playoffs. Of course, you're on the road with the club. Fill us in on what's cooking at The Athletic as you continue this West Coast swing.
Yeah, I've had the chance to have a couple of real good conversations with players lately, and probably the one that I'm most excited to sharing is the one I had with Gabriel Velarde about, I'm not even going to tell you what it's about. I'm going to write it as well as I can, except that I'm a bad salesperson. And I hope that over the years, when we get into feelings and when we get into some of the real philosophical stuff and the growth that players go through, I think that those have been some really good stories, and it was a great conversation with Gabriel Velarde. I really hope I meet the moment when we get to press publish on that, because I think he opened up in a really fascinating way.
Well, listen, I mean, we were speaking earlier. I mean, he's always a great quote, a great soundbite, a very honest guy, and the more stuff we can read and hear from Gabriel Velarde, the better. So we'll look forward to that next piece coming up in The Athletic. Murat, travel safely, enjoy the games on the road, and we'll look forward to catching up next week. Thank you as always.
Thanks a lot, us.
There is Murat Atesh, our pal from The Athletic, athletic.com, where you'll find all of his work. If you're not already subscribed, what the heck are you waiting for? Gang, do not forget, the time is ticking. I'm sure you saw it during the hockey game on Tuesday, but the time is ticking to get your tickets for the HSC Millionaire Lottery. Not to mention the Millionaire Lottery, the grand prize, but also the 50-50 plus and the Extra Cash Plus. Extra Cash Plus tickets, there'll be 125 winners. 120 of $1,000, 5 winners of $10,000, and the 50-50 jackpot is over $1.2 million. Winner takes half. Make sure to include those, but the big ticket is for the grand prize. All in support of Manitoba's Hospital, the Health Sciences Center. You can help our community, help the most important hospital and healthcare center in the city and province, and maybe become Manitoba's next millionaire. If you're with us on YouTube, check out these beautiful dream home packages. 4 inside the city, in and around the city of Winnipeg, and 1 in Vancouver Island, all valued at $1.5 million. Or you can just simply say, show me the money, give me the cash. $1.25 million tax-free cash in the HSC Millionaire Lottery, but you can't win if you're not in. Get your tickets today, hscmillionaire.com. And you can also get them in person at London Drugs or your local Red River Co-op location. All right. Just before we bring in Hacksaw, Remo, do you have the power poll ready to go?
Give me 1 second here with this power poll. Sorry.
All right.
We do not have it right now.
I've sent it over to you. We did the NHL power poll yesterday. I'm interested in Hacksaw's thoughts on this power poll. And I can tell you one team that is nowhere around this power poll, despite having the best record in the National Football League at 8-2 right now. And that's the Denver Broncos, who had one of the most underwhelming victories in recent NFL history with that dog's breakfast that we saw last night, beating the Raiders 10-7. The Broncos are on top of the league right now, but man, you look at some of the teams that they've beaten so far this year, and it is ugly. I mean, who can forget holding the Jets to -10 passing yards and only beating them by 2 points? A 1-score win over the Titans in week 1 with Cam Ward making his debut. They've got 1 win on the season, beating the Jake Browning-led Bengals. We mentioned the Jets game, a 1-point win over the Giants, sneaking out a win on the back of their defense last week against Davis Mills and the Houston Texans, and of course a 3-point win over Geno Smith and the Raiders. So let's get to it. Our weekly NFL Power Poll, brought to you by Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba's power sports superstore for over 80 years. Power up and get ready for winter at Chud's Power Sports. Check them out online at chudspowersports.com. And make sure to visit them. Pop in, say hi to the Derminator and the great people at Chud's at the corner of Highway 8 and 231 in Gimli. All right, here we go. I'm going to give the Bills their just desserts. Great game last week, beating the Kansas City Chiefs. They bounced the Chiefs from the power poll, and they go up to number 1 on the list. Right behind them, the defending NFC champion, Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles have a big one Monday night in Lambeau against the Packers, who were stunned last week as 13-point favorites at home against the Carolina Panthers. Eagles still the team to beat in the NFC at 6-2. Number 3 is the New England Patriots. And listen, the Patriots did go into Buffalo and beat the Bills. Bills get the nod at number 1 this week on account of that win over Kansas City. But both of those teams very much contenders, and the AFC East race could very well go right down to the wire. Number 4, there's a bunch of 6-2 teams. We're going to give it to the Los Angeles Rams. Rams have been awesome this year. Matt Stafford, one of the favorites in the top 5 for the MVP. They've got a huge divisional game with the beat-up San Francisco 49ers, who continue to find ways to win games despite missing so many of their most important players. We're going to give the number 4 spot to the Rams. And in at number 5, I was going to go with Seattle, but considering Tampa went into Seattle in that amazing game a few weeks ago and beat the Seahawks 38-35, we'll give it to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the number 5 spot, just slightly over Sammy Darts and the Seahawks, who have the Cardinals this week. There's your NFL Top 5 weekly power poll on WST, brought to you by Chud's Power Sports. Let's bring in the man himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And Lee, what do you make of the power poll? Do you think the Bills off that week should be at number 1, or is there another team that you would put at the top of your power poll right now in the National Football League?
Hustler. Buffalo beat Kansas City, still they vault. They deserve it. Don't think you're giving enough recognition to the LA Rams. That team is a couple of botched field goals away from being the only unbeaten team in the National Football League, and they have a fierce defense on top of it. So I'd say I agree with you at the top of the poll, but I think the Rams should be a little bit higher. It's been a strange first half of the season as we turn the corner and go to the second half. Here's Kansas City at 5-4, and Kansas City at one point looked like, holy cow, they've come back together, and then they got whacked by Buffalo, and there's still a lot of big games for the Chiefs still to play. So we still got half a season to go. There are going to be some more injuries that I think are going to change the chemistry of a bunch of these football teams.
I'll be honest, I like the Rams more than the Eagles, but the Rams choked against the Eagles. What can I tell you? They blew that game, the 2-block field goals. They ended up losing a game that they led by 19. At this point, I kind of had to keep Philly ahead of them while they have the same record. But, what the hell was going on last night on Thursday Night Football? That was a throwback to the old color rush, like Jags-Titans games when they were 1-7 and 2-6 going at it. I can't believe that football team in Denver is 8-2 after what we saw last night.
Didn't it look like a bad third-week exhibition game in August?
Late August. Great way of putting it, Lee.
At the end of the day, there's something not right with the offense in Denver. And this is a Broncos team that, if you look at on paper, they got a lot of raw firepower. And yet, I don't see a hell of a lot of targets consistently to Cortland Sutton. I don't see a hell of a lot of stuff to the tight end. That's why they signed Evan Ingram. J.K. Dobbins, I think, is a pretty good football player. I think they got some young running backs, but there's just no consistency at all. And the defense, I will say this defense is spectacular. They had 6 more sacks last night. That's 42 sacks on the season. I think they have 19 takeaways. They are miserably tough to compete against when you have a third down to face that defense. They got to fix this offense, and we're halfway through this thing. And I'm just kind of amazed that Sean Payton has not been able to unlock the consistency and the explosiveness to get the ball down the field. Bo Nix shouldn't have to be running all over the parking lot to make plays. Something's amiss with the skilled people around that quarterback right now, and I don't know if it's the receivers. I was also surprised, and we'll probably talk about this, they didn't make a trade at the deadline, and there were wide receivers out there to be gotten, and they didn't do that, and they're, like I say, something's missing.
Lee, speaking of the deadline, we had some fireworks. Aggressive move by the Colts to get Sauce Gardner. The Jets sort of blow it up, but do pretty well, from my opinion, as to the draft capital they got. And we're still wondering just exactly what Jerry Jones is up to.
Well, 13 trades in all. It's an all-time record at the trading deadline in a league that up until about 2 years ago never made trades during the course of the season. But everything's changed, the pressure to win, the salary cap, etc. The Jets' fire sale, they're going to be ugly the whole second half of the season. They might not win a game. Their quarterbacks, their starting quarterbacks have thrown 8 touchdown passes this season. That's it. This is the NFL where everybody throws touchdown passes. And they're sitting there right now. They have 8 number 1 or number 2 draft picks over the next 2 years. And I know fans in New York and the media, well, they're all amped. Well, that doesn't mean anything unless you make the right decision. And the right decision is you've got to find the right quarterback. And there's a lot of heartburn in New York right now because all we do is look at the Sunday out-of-town scoreboard and we see a former Jets quarterback it took a while to get good. And what Sam Darnold did in Minnesota and what Sam Darnold's doing in Seattle is absolutely staggering. That should have been the Jets quarterback, and they kind of let him go. And they've gone through so many guys since that point in time. So the Jets can have all these picks in their pocket. We have to see whether or not they're going to be able to fix it. In terms of Dallas, they've made 3 trades now to fix that defense. They started obviously with the Micah Parsons transaction that brought them Kenny Clark, the defensive tackle, who's still got a lot of gas left in the tank. And I do like Quinnen Williams. I mean, that's a big-time inside player, can also play outside. And they got a really active linebacker in Logan Wilson, who came from Cincinnati. So, Jerry Jones sit back there and hold his Sunday press conferences. Well, I have all these draft picks. Well, he finally spent some. And they got half a season to fix the defense, which is still deplorable. But they're dealing with so many things now, including this horrible tragedy yesterday. So at the end of the day, Dallas has got 8 weeks to find components, and they've added enough pieces, I think, because they're really athletic, to fix the defense to complement the mystical season that Dak Prescott is having there. Jacksonville getting Jacoby Myers from the Raiders, I think that's a good acquisition, but the Jags have got so many wide receivers hurt, now including Travis Hunter, who's just gone on injured reserve. Indy getting Sauce Gardner, and you made reference to it. I saw the Colts 2 weeks ago here when they played the Chargers, and the one thing that really stood out to me, how undersized and how slow Indy's secondary was, all these cornerbacks, etc. Well, Sauce is big, and Sauce can run, and with a good pass rush that Indy has and good linebacking, I think he'll make a difference. And it was a steep price. They traded 2 number ones. But if Indy is as good as Indy thinks it's going to be in terms of being in the playoffs, those picks might be picks 27, 28, 29, or 30. So I think this is a win-now move by the Indianapolis Colts. So those were the marquee trades at the top of the board. And some people didn't make moves. I said Denver. I was surprised New England didn't make a move to try to get a wide receiver. Pittsburgh, to me, is still way too pedestrian on offense, and they've looked hard to try to find speed. They need a terrorist deep threat to work with Aaron Rodgers, who statistics is having a good season, but it's a pedestrian offense. So there are some guys I thought that should have done something that didn't do anything.
Lee, let's give me a little heat check. Where are the warmest seats of head coaches in the NFL right now as we get into the second half of the season?
Well, in Miami, they already fired their general manager, and I think Mike McDaniels is living on borrowed time. At the end of the day, the history in Miami is 5 years ago. They were sitting at the top of the draft board, and there was a load of quarterbacks there, and they took Tua Tagovailoa, and they bypassed on Justin Herbert. And Herbert, who is the Chargers' anchor now at quarterback, has rewritten the passing records of all quarterbacks for the first 4 years of the season. Just think about that. And, but historically, this is, by the way, a Miami team that years ago had the chance to sign Drew Brees and withdrew the offer. And Brees went to New Orleans, won a Super Bowl ring, and helped the city of New Orleans emotionally save itself after Hurricane Katrina. So Miami's got a lot of problems. I think McDaniels is in trouble. I don't know what's going to happen with the New York Giants. They've been very patient with Brian Daboll. But, now he doesn't have the running back, and he doesn't have the wide receiver. And Jackson Dart's doing everything he humanly do as a one-man gang, but he can't do it by himself. And his quarterback rating has now started to drop. They've lost, I think, 3 in a row because he just didn't have enough people around him. So I still think Daboll should probably be in hot water. Cleveland just got rid of their CEO, Paul DePodesta, who had come from Major League Baseball. And, they had rebuilt the Browns, and the Browns got to the playoffs a couple of times, and now they're faltered again. But that's a mess. And I don't know if they're eventually going to take out Kevin Stefanski. But he's a bright light coach. He just didn't have enough players. He got no offensive line. They're weighted down by the disaster of that horrific Deshaun Watson trade a couple of years ago. And by the way, DePodesta fought them on that trade, and yet Jimmy Haslam made this trade to get him. The DePodesta's gone to the Colorado Rockies to be their president of baseball operations. He's coming back to Major League Baseball. I think Stefanski's in trouble, too. So I'd say that the hot seat's warm. But, the last group of years, Hustler, we've had 6 to 7 to 8 head coaches get fired every year. That's a lot. At this point, we've got one already gone. But there'll be a few more. But I don't think we're going to get this mass of 8 or 9 guys get tossed this offseason.
Hey, Saw, before we go, listen, we've gone through many stages of grief around here since the World Series. I mean, historic, all-time, incredible. But just 2 quick things. Just thoughts on how you'll look back at that series between the Jays and the Dodgers. And Jets are in Anaheim to take on the upstart Ducks on Sunday night. What a great story Anaheim is early in the season.
Okay, I'll just give you a couple of quick synopsises here. You mentioned the word grief. I'm going to make a comment about the Dallas Cowboy tragedy too, if that's okay.
Please.
But in terms of how can I word this? It was phenomenal to see the 7-game series. 51 million people globally watched it. Baseball's at an all-time high in popularity right now in terms of TV ratings, attendance, revenue. Don't shut the game down next season. I felt bad for the Blue Jays. That thing was right there for them to take, and it did not happen. But the Dodgers simultaneously earned it. Give them credit for digging out of the hole with a crisis in the bullpen and making enough big defensive plays to win the series against the Jays. I felt brokenhearted. I thought the commissioner really missed an opportunity to do something on behalf of you people. I call you guys my old Canada network. They should have really saluted the Blue Jays and saluted the baseball fans across the Dominion for how that country came together to support Blue Jay baseball, and they didn't. Andrew Friedman, the president of the Dodgers, is the one that wound up saluting the Blue Jays. I thought the commissioner really could have earned some points north of the border because for the Jays to galvanize the Dominion from Newfoundland, Labrador, all the way to British Columbia and the Yukon Territory, I thought that was really cool. In terms of hockey, this Ducks team has turned the corner. But, I mean, the painful loss after painful loss after bad season after bad season. Right there, right now, collection of young kids that were force-fed are all scoring goals. Collection of veterans that they traded for on short-term rentals are all scoring goals. Now, that being said, I caution you, it is an 82-game NHL season. We've got a long way to go. But the Jets are deep. But the Jets are a little bit different. But I'll tell you, the Ducks kids, Leo Carlson and Cutter Gauthier, those guys are flying. And they got a hot young goaltender that we saw down here in San Diego, where I'm based for the San Diego Gulls, Lucas Dostal. So that's going to be cool. And just a final comment on the tragedy. I don't know if you've had much comment on the suicide with Marshawn Nealon. First thing that flashed in my mind when that story broke early yesterday morning here on the West Coast was a guy that we had. I was the voice of the Chargers, Junior Seau. And the second thing that broke in my mind was a guy that played in Kansas City. You and I talked about it way back, who committed suicide too, Jovan Belcher, goaltender. And the first things that popped in my mind, aside from the sadness that Nealon, who's just a bright light young second-year player, the first things that popped in my mind, how come nobody could see any of this? Because I was aghast at the deterioration of Junior Seau, who played 20 years in the NFL, and he killed himself here in San Diego, and he was beloved in the community. He had an inner circle that he ran with, and nobody saw his deterioration. And Belcher, the linebacker, I mean, you talk about tragedy. You and I talked about this years ago.
Horrible.
Yeah, when Belcher killed his girlfriend and then drove to the parking lot at Arrowhead Stadium, called his position coach to come down to talk to him, and killed himself in front of his position coach and the general manager in the parking lot. And there's nobody in that Kansas City locker room did not see changes in Belcher's personality. And then obviously nobody in Dallas had any intuition that something was amiss with this young man.
Kid was just 24 years old.
A second-year player out of Western Michigan, self-made, and a good kid. We're not talking about a bum. Everything with him was yes, sir, no, sir. That's what his coaches at Western Michigan said yesterday. So that's the shocker to me. Players are together all the time. Players run in packs off the field, party, whatever they do. Nobody had any indication that this kid had depression or this kid had these types of conversations. Like nobody had any idea that Junior Seau was about to put a bullet in his chest and kill himself. And obviously what happened with Belcher, it's all CTE and concussion driven. Dak Prescott spoke up late yesterday at the Cowboys camp. I don't know if you heard about this. And he had a family member who committed suicide. In fact, there's 3 Cowboy players who lost family members to suicide and mental illness. And Dak made the comment, it's okay not to be okay. We have so much help out there for all of us. It's okay not to be okay. Ask for help. And a couple other teammates then reached out, Hustler, and made follow-up comments because it was a whole group circle talking to the media. And the other players followed up and said, it's like being in a football huddle at the most important time of the game. This team comes together in the huddle. one of their players is of the opinion that football players around the league need to come together and watch out for each other. So,
yeah, it's really well said. I mean, it's such a tragedy, and unfortunately, this is not the first time, and it probably won't be the last. But I echo everything that you just said. I mean, they've got a lot of programs that are set up to help people, but there is an element of the people that you're closest to, and sometimes, the people just don't notice it. But anything they could do to prevent this would be great. Saul, always great having you on the program. We got a big weekend coming up, gang. If you want to be the smartest person in your crew talking sports, LeeHacksawHamilton.com each and every morning. And of course, join the O Canada crew and make sure to subscribe to Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on YouTube for this show all the time. Lee, have a great weekend. Thanks for your time as always, pal.
Yeah, enjoy your 1919s, watching what's left of the Canadian Football League Grey Cup playoffs, too, because you guys are still playing important football this time of the year, even if the Blue Bombers are not in it. I'll catch you Friday.
Another part of a very tough weekend for a lot of people around here last week. There's the Hacksaw, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Check the site out if you haven't already, and Lee usually joins us for the NFL Notebook on Fridays. All right, we are just about ready to go with a little marble race action. Folks, if you just popped in, here's your last call for marbles. Remo will get things set up while I head over and check out the Coolbet lines. Now, for all of our NFL picks, check out today's edition of WST Winners. As soon as the marble race is over, we did it live this morning at 10 a.m. It's right up there on the YouTube channel. Pop in there. Leave your favorite pick of the weekend in the comments as well. We'll start off with the NHL, though, before we get into any NFL stuff. 4 games on the docket tonight. Of course, the Jets are the late one. Starts off with the Rangers in Motown to take on the Wings. Wings are a minus 120 home fave. The Minnesota Wild are in New York to take on the Islanders. Wild playing on the second night of back-to-backs. Wild plus 130. Islanders minus 154. Same odds for Chicago at Calgary. Chicago, the road dog at plus 130. Calgary minus 154. And in the finale tonight, we've been waiting 3 days for a game. We get it just after 9 p.m. at the Shark Tank in San Jose. It's the Winnipeg Jets and the San Jose Sharks. Jets minus 189 favorites for tonight's game. I'm feeling this is a big first line game. So I've put together in the exclusives a little ride with us under the Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay. It is the Jets to win and Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele each to record 2 points tonight. Obviously, those numbers are somewhat linked because they are line mates, but Connor and Scheifele each to get 2 points, and the Jets to win plus 375 in the ride with us. We've also got our WST winners prop parlay. Patty's got Jared Goff going for 248 in the air or more. Jake has Nico Collins with 63 or more receiving yards. And I'm leaning on Justin Jefferson for 7 or more receptions against the Baltimore Ravens. That one is up at 715, plus 715. Big slate of games in the weekend in the NFL. Starts off in Frankfurt, Germany. Sauce Gardner making his debut for the Colts. How's that for a week? Traded from New York to Indy and then immediately on a flight to Frankfurt to play for your new squad. Colts are 6.5-point favorites. Other big matchups, the Bills, 9.5-point favorites on the road against the Dolphins. Huge game for both the Ravens and the Vikings. Both teams got to have this one. Baltimore is a 4-point road favorite in Minnesota against the Vikes. And probably the game of the week, 7-2 Patriots, 6-2 Bucks. Tampa Bay, a 2.5-point favorite at home against New England. Connor Rabchak's Niners are 4.5-point dogs at home to the Los Angeles Rams. And an interesting Sunday nighter, Pittsburgh at the Chargers. Chargers, 2.5-point favorites. And a 1-point spread for the Monday nighter beauty matchup, Eagles and Packers on Monday night, -1. If you hit the combo cards on Coolbet, you will find out a bunch of NHL props for tonight. But we've also got our WST winners combos up. The pay dirt parlay, we're kind of swinging for the fences. Patty's rolling with Dalton Kincaid, more than 2-1. I'm going with Quinshawn Junkins for the Browns against the New York Jets. And Jake's rocking Jameson Williams. That's a big one this week. Plus 1368, boosted to plus 1574. And our spread parlay, Baltimore minus 3.5, Detroit minus 7.5, and the Steelers plus 3.5. That one's boosted up to plus 572. It's all up at Coolbet for you. If you haven't played there before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Take advantage of all the boosted parlays up in the combo cards in the exclusives. And yes, you might want to ride with me tonight on the Jets to win. Scheifele and Connor to both record 2 points. That one is up at plus 375. Looking forward to seeing Pat and Jake, Ange, and the Coolbet crew here in the Peg next week. We're going to have some fun for Grey Cup weekend when they and all of our friends from around the country come to join us for one more game in the CFL this year at the 112th Grey Cup. Just before we bring in Remo and get to marbles, we can't forget about the CFL playoffs. Hasn't been much line movement. Montreal is still a 3-point favorite in Hamilton against the Ticats. And the Riders are now 3.5-point favorites at Coolbet over BC. James Butler, a game-time decision for tomorrow. That is not good. You know you need to be able to run the football. To me, this is Nathan Rourke. If he can win this game, if he can be the best player on the field, BC will have a chance. If not, I think Sask is going to be taking over that Winnipeg Blue Bomber locker room. All right, Remis, how are we looking for a little marbles action to finish off the week?
Let me check. Got a lot of entries in. People very fired up, putting in the command before it can even be announced. 253 users in the marble race. Shout out to everyone who's in here. Yeah, there's a lot of people in here today, 340. So people are in here for the race. Excited for CFL playoffs, Jets, and Sharks tonight, NFL this weekend. Very exciting. Grey Cup week next week. It's all right. I'm starting to look at forecasts now, hoping it's not too cold. We had some snow last night. There's snow on the ground.
Oh, it was blowing last night.
So it'll be a fun week here next week with all the festivities happening.
Yes. You know what? If you can load me in there in all caps, that would be nice. Just a quick update on how things are looking for the Grey Cup. Right now, 8 days out or so, 9 days out, the forecast high is 0. We'll take that. We will take that. And it looks like Grey Cup week's going to be pretty nice. I mean, Tuesday's going to be 6, Wednesday 4, Thursday 2, Friday 3, Saturday 1, and then a little colder, just 0 on Grey Cup day. But that's going to be nice. I can remember the Grey Cup in Saskatchewan, not in 22. I was in Qatar, but the previous one for that, it was like minus 26 all weekend. The wind was blowing. I mean, it was just doing the run from door to car to door. It'll be nicer for the game and for Grey Cup week, which is a good thing for the city of Winnipeg and everybody taking in the Grey Cup. All right, it is marbles time. Before we do the race, let's tee it up with the one and only Tristan Rivers music with the marbles theme on WST.
Oh, yes, I have to pick a theme. We did the Guns N' Roses theme the last 2 weeks in honor of his show at the casino, South Beach, but I'll pick a different one for him. That was a great theme song, though. Wasn't that a great one?
Oh, it was amazing. We went back to back with it. We got to pop that out occasionally as well.
Yeah, it was too good. Anyways, here's the next one.
up, Remo. Let us know where we're going. I see Rick Buck still talking about weather for CFL playoff games. Yes, the West Final here against the Riders was a horrible, cold, windy day. For that game, I was in a loge, which was at, basically at the level of grade of the upper level, right in front of the northeast corner of the building. And that wind was on us nonstop the entire game. It was so bloody cold. That was the game that turned into a big dance party in the stadium in the fourth quarter, just because people had to keep jumping and moving around just to stay warm. A very memorable day. Everyone was pumped. The Bombers beat the Riders, and then we headed down for, I believe, Jets Leafs at Canada Life Center. And I never took off my toque, my scarf, or anything. I was basically freezing the entire night and well into the next day. Hopefully it won't be. Well, it looks like it's going to be a hell of a lot nicer for the Grey Cup, which is a great thing. All right, Remo, take it away. Where are we going?
Man, I'm just thinking about like a cold Grey Cup, like having to play football in that weather. And yes, you get thinking about the. I have those from. I got the Costco box of those. I'll be ready.
Hand warmers, gotta bring them. Stick them in your feet.
And and you think about all the cold games, and the last time the Grey Cup was here, I've said I froze, and I was sick for a week after. And I think one of the last games at Canada Stadium too. I was. Oh yeah,
that was the Bomber Ticat East Final in 2011. And that game, I was in the upper bowl for that game. And I remember getting 2 beers and bringing them and sticking them on the concrete in front of my seat. And within 90 seconds, they had frozen over. I remember I tweeted a picture at Gary in the press box. And then I think Bruce Arthur and some other people were retweeting it out and going, it is legitimately cold. It was a good -20 that day. That was Chris Garrett day. He ran all over Hamilton. The Bombers went to the Grey Cup and unfortunately did not win, losing to the Lions, who had started 0-5 that year. But it was a very, very fun. The Grey Cup weeks in Vancouver have just been awesome. Let's make it great next week in Winnipeg. All right, let's do this.
Chris Garrett. It's funny. We always go through like the list of Bomber quarterbacks over the years, but you could put a good list together of Bomber running backs. I remember I was a big Timothy Flanders guy for a while. I thought he had a good run here.
Fred Reed,
yeah, well, he's pretty good. There was some other good ones as well. I'll have to do some research, but here, the race we have now, we have 254 marbles, including Hustler in all capitals. It's called Nice Glazed Feeling. And I tested it out. It was pretty good track. Pretty good track.
I love it.
So here, let me bring it up here.
By the way, some people, will you get this up? Shout out and congratulations to the Oak Park Raiders, who won the Anavets Bowl last night at Princess Auto Stadium. Heck of a game, beating another powerhouse program in Dakota. Remember, Dakota didn't even have a program when I was in high school, but it's great to see the way high school football has grown over the last number of years. But Oak Park, just a juggernaut, 22-17. Heck of a game between those two teams. And the AAA final went earlier yesterday. The St. Norbert Celtics beating the Dryden Eagles 10-0. Defensive battle. Very different one in the Tier 2 Quad A. Elmwood Giants putting up 66 on Wednesday, beating Tech Vox 66-35. And the JV final, Miles Mack beating Grant Park 18-13. But congratulations to all the champions and everybody that put that in. We will have another game on Monday, Elmwood and West K going at it in the Quad A Tier 2 final. All right, here we go. It's the Nice Glazed Feeling. 254 marbles in it. New track. Let's have some fun. WST hoodie to the winner. Drop the marbles, Remo, and let's get her going and get this weekend on the road.
Everyone's putting in random Bomber running backs in the chat. This is Chad Simpson, Nick Grigsby. There's some good ones in here. Blaze
Bryant. Oh, Mike Sellers. Mike Sellers is unreal. He wasn't here for a long time, but that Thunder and Lightning with Sellers and Charles Roberts. Oh my God, we could do this all day. All right, hit it. Let's get this going.
Nothing like remembering some guys.
Yeah, exactly. All right, big spinner. Geez, Amanda, stuck at the top. Not a great start for the 3-time champion. Anybody's race right now, though, as we've got 254 marbles slowly cascading down into this first tube. Let's see who's getting out first. Who will be with the lead? Son of Dirk, Tony B, MC Stormy, Todd 18, K6000, all right there in the mix. But it is packed. No real separation from any of the marbles. Let's see what happens as this new track continues. Oh, we're getting some eliminations right now. On that one side, Poopy Pants just got dropped. Stem, Inist. Who else is there? Coach Keyser looking pretty good. Saw Scott Westman right in the mix. All right, John Thurston, K6000. Stem, Terry Bidick. Oh, Todd Fertani. Look at Todd in the mix right now. G Raw as well. That's a new one. Welcome to the race, G Raw. Jeez, one of my pals, Todd Fertani, looking pretty good. And there's Scott Westman as well. 2 WST legend. Oh, Fertani in the lead and did not complete the loop-de-loop. He's out right now. It's getting tight. Cole just moved into first place right now. Oh, speaking of WST favorites, there's Mary Jane in the mix as well. Mary Jane, Scott Westman, Cole right now in first place with the lead, but this is tight. K6000 is in the mix. There's Mary Jane, Scott Westman. What it looks like, I'm not sure if Mary Jane's ever won before. Wouldn't this be she'd be a very popular winner, I'd imagine, in the chat. Always a ray of sunshine for WST. K6000 on Mary Jane's tail. Scott Westman and a crew right behind. We're getting close, but this is the final stretch right here. Mary Jane looking good, going through the middle tray, which seemed to be the move. Looks like a weed leaf, by the way. This track. Mary Jane stopping. There's a bit of quicksand or something like that here. Who will make it through this area? Mr. V-Dub with an incredible move, and it could be Mr. V-Dub with the win, and it is. Heartbreak for Mary Jane and others. Mr. V-Dub making it happen with an incredible finish. Sheldon Sawatsky is our second place finisher. G Raw in third, Cole in fourth, Ray 5, Johnny Bender number 6, Corey H, Stoop, Candace Jane, and Mary Jane, 2 of the queens of the WST chat, finishing out the top 10 today. Everything else finishing up as we go down. Do you not think that the end of that track looks like the cover of the Chronic album, Remis?
It does, yeah. I maybe that has to do with the nice glazed feeling that the track name is promoting.
Nice glazed feeling, for sure. I have a feeling there's probably some big-time stoners that spend a lot of time doing marbles and then maybe get into maybe get into marble track construction after a good one. Anyways, fun, or a really good track. We should remember that one. But Mr. V-Dub is the winner. Mr. V-Dub, hit us up. Let us know what size you are. Send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com, along with your contact info, and we'll holler at you. You can pop by and pick it up. Shout out to TTT Bone, who popped by yesterday to pick up his hoodie. We gave you the top 10. K6000. Oh, Mr. V-Dub is from Chuds. Oh, my God. They're going to be going crazy at Chuds Power Sports today. The Derminator. I think that's the second winner ever we have had from the Chuds community. Running down these, there's all caps Kyle. There's Mike Lay, Chud's Power Sports. Drew Doughty in the mix today. I see Son of Dirk. There's Leonard, Bruce, Tracy O. What's up, Patrolman Pete? There's the Derminator, 72nd. What's up, Derm? The gang of Chuds, ready for marbles and ready for the snow to fly. Getting you ready to hit the trails this year. Continuing the run, there's Cam Thang, Russ Lowen. I don't think I finished today. Roscoe didn't. I didn't either. Rip City Step. There's an ESTer. What's going on? Dr. Terry also got whacked, like myself. Bravo Bry. I didn't really see all these DQs, but I guess it happened a little later on. And there's our pal Todd Fertani. Such a great run, and then a tragic ending. But there was a lot of lead changes. That was a real fun one. Shout out to Jade Bow, who did the glazed nice feeling for the race today. Great creativity in that one. Good stuff. Well, listen, it's going to be a fun weekend. We got CFL playoffs tomorrow, big slate of NFL on Sunday, and we got 9 o'clock games on Friday and Saturday. Jets, Sharks, Jets, Ducks. Connor and the gang. Connor and Liz will have some post-game action after today, so when you get up tomorrow, maybe before a legal curve, if you haven't already, make sure to check that out. Leave a comment for Connor and Liz. And then Sunday morning, 9 a.m., Connor, Liz, and the gang get going with WST Sunday Live, their take on the Chud Sports Power Poll. Always entertaining, all their features, and again, a look ahead to Sunday night's game against the Anaheim Ducks. We'll be back on Monday, of course, off Tuesday for Remembrance Day, and then all systems go for what should be a great Grey Cup week here in Winnipeg and here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But before we start talking Grey Cup week, let's find out tomorrow who's playing in the game. East Final, West Final. I'm expecting Montreal Sask, but it is the CFL, the crazy football. You never know what'll happen. Sort of pulling for Hamilton, to be honest with you. We know how special it was for the Bombers to end that 29-year drought. Hamilton's 20-plus right now. Been a long time. I think they'd be the sentimental favorite, but I think they're going to have a real hard time with Davis Alexander and the Montreal Alouettes. And as I say, if BC's going to win tomorrow, it's going to be on the back of a brilliant performance from Nathan Rourke. I still think the Riders will take advantage of the home crowd, the rest, the weather, and book their ticket to the Grey Cup next week. That is going to do it for us, gang. Thanks again to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. To Hacksaw, Murat, Brandon Rewucki, Jeff Hamilton, and all of you for being a part of it. Enjoy the games tonight and on the weekend. Make sure to pop on the channel throughout the week for the weekend for the post-game content, WST Sunday Live. And we will see you Monday right here, 1 o'clock to wrap the entire weekend on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Have a great one. We'll see you Monday on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.